and today it's all about that second spot in the grand final to face Magnus Carlsen. Will it be Denis Lazovic or Nodirbek Abdusattorov, or will it be Alireza Firouzja? I've got Simon Williams here with me. Simon, who's going to take that spot?
Well, I think it's going to be a really close day of chess. I mean, my pick is Alireza Firouzja. He had a really bad day against Magnus yesterday, but I think he's going to come fighting back and prove his place and stamp that spot in the final again.
One thing's clear, it's going to be Magnus versus the kids. Welcome to the Julius Baer Generation Cup. Jordan seems to be doing everything right, but not anymore.
He blundered his knight.
Oh.
It's full of traps. You saw the reaction. He's like, oh, crap, here we go. Like, what has this kid got in store?
It's got to be a checkmate, right? I mean, that king might see this on the board.
Levon is freaking out. He's got 5 seconds. It's over.
Checkmate on the board. Eduardo Durzaga reacts. He celebrates.
Oh, hello.
And now the seconds of the clock. And Wesley Brown down to 3 seconds. He walks into a pin.
He is so stressed out.
Tension. He knows he's so close in this one.
Oh,
He could have taken the pawn, and that's it. And Wesley saw there. He celebrates. Magnus Carlsen gets a rest day while the prodigies will battle it out in the elimination bracket. And with just being a best of 2, we are expecting aggressive chess. Welcome, everyone. It's going to be exciting, and to call on all the action in the studio, Grandmaster David Howell, Grandmaster Simon Williams, and International Master Jovanka Hauska. David, what a fantastic, dramatic day of chess it was. Magnus wrapping up the winners' final in just 3 games. What did you make of that?
Yeah, just fantastic chess, entertaining, dramatic chess, and Magnus in top form. We've known it for a while. He's really peaking right now, but we have to admit, Firouzja not quite at his best. Magnus is going to await the kids in the final. I can't wait.
The 3 kids fighting it out in the elimination bracket. We can't wait to see who challenges Magnus in the grand final. And Jovanka, it was also hot action in the elimination bracket on day 3. 2 of the world top 10 being knocked out. Wesley So and Fabiano Caruana. What did you take away from that?
Well, it seems like the new generation is here. 16-year-old Denis Lazovic being toe-to-toe with Wesley So, both in terms of resourcefulness and also in terms of solid positions. But for me, it was all about the Armageddon, where the teenagers just stamped their authority.
2 incredible fights, 2 amazing Armageddons. And while we've often seen the players fighting, bidding for the black pieces, we had Nodirbek bid 14 minutes, 59 seconds. Simon, did that surprise you?
It surprised me a little bit, but he got smashed when he had the black pieces against Fabiano, so he clearly wanted to have the white pieces, and he made sure with that bid that he was going to get the white pieces, and in the end, it was a great decision. He went through and he beat Fabiano. Couldn't have gone better.
What a day it was, and we had miniatures, we had missed opportunities, and while it was a Magnus Carlsen show in the winners bracket, youth prevailed in the elimination bracket. We had exciting games, we had the comebacks, and a shocking Armageddon bid by Nodirbek Abdusattorov. Got a feel for Fabi right now. He had it so close, especially that second game, and this Armageddon, just everything went wrong.
And I think Fabi is preparing himself.
He's resigned. It is match over and tournament over for Fabiano Caruana as Nodirbek makes a huge comeback and goes through. Knight B5!
Okay. Boom, on the board. And I mean, I don't remember any details from here other than White's next move. I just remember it was chaos. I was looking from the black side and I thought, okay, this is unplayable. The stakes are so high, you could just get knocked out in the next move or 2 if you're not careful.
Oh, it goes for my move.
Oh, look at the bar. Go down.
Question mark. Oh, dear.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my gosh. Magnus is back.
He's trying to play for some tricks. He's only got 11 seconds, but look at the white bishop. What a weird square to land on.
Magnus is just relentless. Look at him. He's taking everything now.
Alireza, Firouzja resigns. Magnus Carlsen making it look easy today. And it's all gone wrong. The h4 pawn has been picked up. The d5 pawn has been picked up, and
Beautiful tactics.
again the back crank. Magnus, with his unique ability to just have all his pieces at the right squares to execute an attack and finish the game. I don't know how he does it, but it seems to happen time and time again. 4 seconds.
2.
Gotta move.
As he
Whoa.
1 second.
Okay, he takes the
He
knight.
takes it with how much time did he have on the clock? Because it's a 3
1
second
second.
increment. Barely any time.
Oh, no, but the king
Might
is
be
moving
checkmate.
into a mating net. He's going to get caged.
Alireza Firouzja resigns. Magnus Carlsen wrapping it up in 3 games. We started with 8 players. We are down to just 4. Magnus Carlsen, with his hot streak in the winners bracket, is into the grand final. Along the way, he did take down world number 2, Fabiano Caruana, and the 20-year-old Alireza Firouzja. 4 players have been knocked out, while we've got three youngsters battling it out in the elimination bracket. We start the day with Denis Lazovic taking on Nodirbek Abdusattorov. The winner of that match will play against Alireza Firouzja. The winner gets that final spot to challenge Magnus Carlsen for the championship at the Julius Baer Generation Cup. We start the day with Dan Laz taking on Nodirbek. David, is there a favorite?
On paper, we would say that Abdusattorov is the favorite here. He's vastly experienced compared to his slightly younger teenage opponent there. He's also won the World Rapid Championship. However, based on tournament form here, I don't know. It's just 2 different styles. The solid, rock-solid Lazovic, never really blundering, versus the wild Abdusattorov, who's been really up and down, fluctuating. It's hard to call.
I think if they play at the same standard they've been playing at here, it could go either way. I mean, Denis, he's just played so solid chess, and I think he could actually go through. It could be a bit of an upset. I mean, I believe Nodirbek is the better player, but he's got to bring it today. He's got to play the better chess.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to disagree with you, both of you, because even though I say that Lazovic has been playing the better chess, Nodirbek got a big dose of luck yesterday, and that has to count for something.
And making that comeback, the momentum shift. And we had him for the interview. He seems super confident, and he should be. When you take down world number 2 in that fashion, he's definitely in shape. What surprised me the most, David, was when he said that he didn't play his best chess, but taking down one of the best in the world. How do you do that?
Yeah, that's the real mark of a genius, a really strong player. I think in any sport, you have to master this skill, not being at your best, but still grinding out the results, still getting there, finding your way. And that's what he did yesterday. He was getting outplayed. He was on the brink of elimination, one accurate move, and he might have been out. But he stayed in it, and that really paid off in the end, that resilience.
Nodirbek Abdusattorov has been in fantastic form this season at the Champions Chess Tour, winning Division 2 of the Chessable Masters, going on to Division 1 of Chesskit Cup and dominating the field, winning that one, booking his spot into the Toronto finals. But not just him, Denis Lazovic as well, when he won the AIM Chess Rapid Division 2. And what incredible play we've been seeing by the 16-year-old. So much motivation, so much to fight for in these other 2 divisions. And we're seeing the same storyline in this Julius Baer Generation Cup as well, with players fighting for the big tour points, a lot on the line. We had an action-packed day.
2-time World Chess Championship challenger Jan Nepomniachtchi won his match against top Egyptian player Bassem Amin.
Draw agreed here. Nepo advances.
Additionally, rising talent Vladislav Artemiev took down the elite Levan Aronian.
And Artemiev advances.
Now, Nepo and Artemiev are set to face off in the winner's bracket final of Division 2. In Division 3, Shakirar Mamedyarov discovered 3 brilliant moves. With 2 rooks and a wave of pawns against Sevian's lonesome queen, it was too much.
That was the game of the tournament. Black made lots of sacrifices, and they were all good. He won with black.
Mamedyarov earned his way into the grand final of Division 3 and has a shot at gaining his first division victory of the tour.
The players are fighting for $10,000 as the first prize, 50 tour points, and a ticket to the next Division 1 of the Champions Chess Tour event. And it was Jan Nepomniachtchi and Vladislav Artemiev who needed only 3 games to take down Armin Basim and Levan Aronian. They will be fighting against each other in the big winners final. It's a super close match. David, who's your pick in this one?
Yeah, it's going to be close. These two players know each other extremely well. They've fought against each other plenty of times before. They've been teammates at international level. Nepomniachtchi is maybe the more successful on paper, having reached 2 World Championship finals, but Artemiev, he's a giant slayer. If it gets down to the endgame as well, yeah, he's consistent, nearly never makes a mistake. It's going to come down to the nitty-gritty, those 1 or 2 moves here and there.
He's very good, Artemiev, in this format when he plays online as well. I mean, he beat Magnus on a couple of occasions in this tournament, so I would not write him off, and probably going to be a 50-50 one, that one, I'd say.
50-50. It is going to be a close fight, and the players are super motivated. We have seen the incredible performances coming from Division 2 winner, but it's not just Division 2. We've got big names and big action in Division 3 as well. We do have famous fan legend Gada Kamsky, who will be taking on Botnik in the losers semi-final today. Jovanka, it is a clash of generations in that one. And while Kamsky, he's known for his experience in these formats, Botnik, he's such a speed specialist.
He is a speed specialist. He's a streamer. He's also incredibly dangerous on the board. But of course, you mentioned it, Kamsky experienced. He has his opening repertoire. That one is going to be a very, very, very hard-fought match. And just to say that the winner will be meeting Sam Sevian, who also seems to be very lucky when it comes to these type of events. He always does well.
These are matches you don't want to miss, and you can follow all of Division 2 action on Chess Dojo's Twitch channel, and Division 3 will be covered by Grandmaster Ben Feingold. We will have our focus on the big young threes who are fighting in Division 1 today, and one player who has impressed us so much in the Julius Baer Generation Cup, the youngest ever to play in Division 1, 16-year-old Denis Lazovic. That's a name that you want to remember. We will be seeing a lot more from him in the future. He's got a big fight coming up, and here's what sets him apart.
Denis Lazovic is an online sensation. The teenager, known as Den Laz, has been taking down experienced grandmasters for many years already. A specialist in blitz chess and rapid chess, Denis Lazovic has now qualified for Division 1 of the Champions Chess Tour, and he did it in style. With his uncompromising, tenacious and resilient style of play, Denis Lazovic is truly unique for such a young player. He's able to positionally outplay his opponents, he's able to outmaneuver them, and with his solid openings, he has a perfect base to emphasize his rapid skills. When given a tactical opportunity, however, Denis Lazovic does pounce. Check out this position from Division 2 of the AIM Chess Rapid, which Lazovic went on to win. Here, Denis Lazovic was white against Parham Maghsoodloo. White has a material advantage, being up a rook for black's bishop, but the finishing touches to this game are still needed. Lazovic here, of course, found the most brutal way to finish the game, the most decisive move, and it was a sacrifice. Rook to h8, giving up the rook on an empty square. A check, of course, this rook simply has to be captured, and this allowed the white queen to zoom in to f8, a square no longer protected by the black king. Again, black has only one legal reply, king to h7, and this allowed the finishing touch. The other rook slides over to the vacated h1 square. That's a check. The black king is simply trapped, and here Parham Maghsoodloo resigned rather than giving up his queen on h6. This would have led to checkmate anyway, and Maghsoodloo won a masterpiece. Queen to h8, checkmate.
Denis Lazovic has already taken down Armin Tabatabai and Wesley So, but today a big challenge when he plays against the youngest ever world rapid champion. Simon, how would you describe the styles of these two youngsters?
Well, Denis is rock solid. I mean, he's a real menace on the chessboard, and he just plays sorry, I had to say that. He plays these really solid openings, and on the other hand, Nodirbek, as we saw, takes a lot of risks. So it's kind of like fire and ice there, and it'll be a very interesting matchup for that reason.
Yeah, we've kind of seen Abdusattorov just push the boundaries a bit and just see what he can get away with. Yesterday, Abdusattorov was super lucky, but I think today it's going to be a very tough fight.
It's just about who can get their type of position, who can get their style and assert their dominance. But yeah, it can go either way, for sure.
It's going to be a very close match between the 16-year-old Denis the Menace and the 18-year-old Nodirbek Abdusattorov. And while we are not able to pick a favorite in that one, we did ask Nodirbek his take on this upcoming fight.
Yeah, he looked very impressive. I think I played in Division 2 of one of the tournaments. Yeah, it was extremely tough match, and I pulled off a win in Armageddon. Yeah, but it was extremely tough. Yeah, I'm looking forward to play him tomorrow. So yeah, let's see how it goes.
Two very distinct styles of play will be clashing today when these two meet each other. The technical, positional, strategic Denis Lazovic and the very concrete, aggressive, more universal style there by Nodirbek Abdusattorov. The players are ready. The medals in the background are ready. Definitely very inspired Dan Laz there. What a performance he's had so far. And I think few would have predicted that Dan Laz would get to this stage of the tournament.
No, I mean, he's had an incredible run. You know, first up was Caruana. That match had to be decided by Armageddon, and even then it was super close. And then, of course, he beat Amin Tabatabai, and then also now Wesley So. I mean, it was really very nice the way that he dispatched Wesley in the Armageddon. And there we have kick-off, and we see it is the... Is it going to be the slow Slav or is it going to be the mainline Slav? And that depends on whether White develops the knight there on the left side of the board.
Yeah, interesting. We very rarely see it these days at the top level, the Slav defense. It's definitely out of fashion. It used to be a mainstay of all the top players' opening repertoires, but this is just showcasing a solid approach from Abdusattorov. Very different from the aggressive, dynamic chess we've been seeing from him, especially in the opening stage throughout this tournament. And, OK, it is the slow Slav, as Jovanka mentions there. Black here choosing to fianchetto. It's very flexible, but, again, it's just rock solid. Black is just holding on in the centre. And Black will be slightly cramped, but nothing serious to worry about. Both players just seeming to get out of the opening here. And I think this might suit Lazovic. Stylistically, at least, he'll be pretty happy with the way the opening's gone. Nothing, kind of no fireworks at this early stage. Simon, much experience with this type of opening?
I've been looking at this a bit actually with my friend Richard Palliser, and it's very solid for Black. This, I mean, White is just trying to get a very small advantage with this structure because it's quite symmetrical, and really the only difference is that White's got a bit more space with those two pawns in the centre rather than Black's one pawn. And White has general ideas of either expanding on the queen side, so you can at some point go c5 and push all your pawns in that area, or do a well-timed capture on d5. You can also bring your queen out, and it's just aiming for that small edge here.
But this bishop move that Black has just played, it's a little bit unusual because traditionally Black's big idea is actually to develop the bishop all the way to the g4 square and trade that bishop for the knight, and then you play very solidly by putting all the pawns on light squares. But instead, we see the bishop develop to this unorthodox square, but it has been played before.
It has been played before. The whole idea is to secure the Black centre and maybe hint that you might capture this pawn, hence why Denis Lazovic has pushed his pawn to b3, but this has invited the Black knight into the centre. And usually with this structure, connect 3 here for Black, you are very solid, but you're slightly cramped. So trading off pieces, one set of minor pieces, is a very good idea when you're short of space. So here, I'm not expecting Denis Lazovic here to capture this Black knight. I think this would potentially backfire unless you're very accurate. If, for example, now you played a very passive move, then Black could strike along this diagonal. Look at how this bishop has opened up. There's a pin here, and Black will capture in the centre next move with a very healthy position. So I'm just expecting Denis to react by defending this knight. And yeah, the play really, really solid and really slow for both sides, hence the name the slow Slav.
It feels like some sort of preparation by Nodirbek. He's been blitzing out his move, getting that bishop to this non-standard square of the e6 point. And this last move, knight e4, David, you're pointing out this concrete line of trading. But can't White get more aggressive after that? Because the first question I had in my mind was knight e4, you recapture with the pawn takes knight, and the knight can jump forward, targeting the bishop that Jovanka pointed out earlier, also hitting the pawn. We see a slower move by Denis Lazovic. We will get to the live board. And now if you go bishop to f5, defending that pawn, you know what I want to play here? I want to try and get g4 in. Is that completely crazy?
Not crazy at all, but not Denis Lazovic style. I think that's the main thing. I mean, this is maybe the acid test of what Black has been trying to do to really kind of try and punish Black for this opening. I mean, here it looks like the justification for Black's line might be this crazy move, and we would see a position very much in Abdusattorov style suddenly hitting this undefended white knight. The position would just have exploded here, but it's very much here we see kind of players stamp their personal taste on the position. This was just too wild for Denis Lazovic. His king would be open as white, and even if it is a slight advantage for white, this was something he wanted to avoid. So instead, if we go back to the live board, a much calmer, duller position, but for Denis Lazovic, something he'll enjoy a bit more.
Yeah, 100% agree. I mean, I'm a little bit surprised that Nodirbek has gone for this line, just because it seems to be playing into what Denis would like. A very solid position with white, chances to get a small advantage, but you obviously can't complain about Black's play either, because Black's got all his pieces to good squares. He's controlling the centre well. He's got his knight in the centre, so it should be an even start to the game. I imagine white here, I mean, at some point, white's got to think about what he's going to do on the queen side. So do you capture that pawn in the centre, or do you push the pawn on c4? Because you can try to open up your rook by capturing, or you can try to gain space. And another idea you can play is to try and kick that knight in the centre away. So move your knight and push the pawn to where your knight is on f3. So these are the kind of things that white's doing, and maybe Black there was threatening to exchange off, but we have another move, David. The knight goes to the side of the board, and knights on the rim are dim, knights on the side fall off, knights over there are really bad, knights on the hill slide down and drown.
You're a poet, Simon.
Yeah,
wait
got
for my
your
book.
rhyming couplets very well. But actually, I was going to say Denis's move is really clever, actually, because if you take a look at Black's knights, they were both fighting for the same square. So Denis has kind of said, well, the knight is going at the edge of the board, but it will perhaps be moving to the c5 square. And let's not forget that you then pass the move to Black, and it's not easy for Black to actually come up with a plan, because all the natural pawn breaks, they're not there in the position.
Yeah, the reason we say maybe white has a small advantage is because this central tension with pawns on c4 here and c6, white is the one who holds the key to opening the position. Black never really wants to capture on c4, meanwhile, because then white would establish a nice pawn center. So it's very much white holding the key, Black just trying to lock it down. And yeah, this move, I mean, to me, it's bizarre, knight to a4. I very rarely see this type of idea unless maybe the c file is already open, but clever. You mentioned it, Jovanka, it's what we call superfluous knights. One of them is a bit useless. They're both fighting for the same square, and it's frustrating for Black. No obvious plan with no pawn breaks. You're just kind of sitting and waiting, and that's unpleasant psychologically. So yeah, definitely the idea of taking and maybe jumping in the near future on the cards.
He's really impressed me, Denis. I have to say, you know, I didn't know much about Denis before this tournament, and just watching his games, he's got such a mature style. I mean, just a move like that, not many grandmasters, I think, would consider that move. They'd try to play something a bit more sort of, concrete in the centre of the board, but just a very logical and good move. And he's just impressed me a lot.
And these styles that we talk about with these youngsters and these iconic players, is that something that gets influenced because of the kind of training that you have, or is it sort of more innate about personalities there?
I think me and Jovanka disagree about this, and I think it's a combination of both. So if your coach is, a really boring grinder, sorry, David.
I'm not Denis's coach.
Only joking. If your coach is a really positionally founded person who loves the ending, he's obviously going to teach you to play in the same way. But when it comes to personality, I think that does shine through in the way you play chess. And again, Jovanka totally disagrees.
I so disagree with that, because I know so many people who you think, oh, they're meek, they're mild, they're very quiet, and then they sit down at the board and they come at you like they're a caveman with a club in their hands. No. I completely disagree there, Simon.
What do you reckon,
Sorry.
David? I don't know. What do you reckon? Do you rate your game with
on Simon's side?
Yeah, that's all right. Don't say sorry. It's good.
Sorry, Jovanka.
Yeah.
That's really interesting, because one person who comes to my mind about what Jovanka said, Eric Rosen. He is the most soft-spoken, the sweetest guy that you'd meet, talk to, and then when you play against him, it's no mercy. But you guys are saying that chess does imitate life then?
I think it does. I mean, I think someone like Eric, when you're playing, everyone's going to try to kill you. It's just what kind of style, how are they going to try to kill you? Are they going to try to do it quickly, or are they going to try to torture you a little bit like this man here? I mean, it's like, I mean, I think it does, but me and Ivanka just disagree on this point. Be interesting to hear people's point of view.
Yeah.
Tanya, what do you reckon? Come on.
I think it's a combination of the two. I would agree with that. I do think that your sort of innate personality does get reflected on the board with certain choices you make, especially the instinctive ones when you're under time pressure. But it also has a lot to do with the influence that you have in your growing up years. But Simon, then what does your obsession with Harry the H-Pawn tell us about your personality?
What do you want me to say?
Come on, Simon. Reveal your deepest, darkest secrets.
I've obviously got some problems, yeah. So, I mean, that could be a whole show.
That's a whole different show, a whole different therapy session there. But right now, let's get back to the chess because we have seen a rerouting of the knight to the center of the board. Ivanka getting control of those dark squares that you're talking about.
Right, and not only is the knight on d3 threatening to jump into the c5 square, but I suspect that there are some even more cleverer plans at White's disposal. David.
Trying to read your mind, Ivanka. Sorry, carry on.
And you got there as well. Yeah, the knight wants to jump to the f4 square and attack the light square bishop. And let's not forget that it's not the only piece that can get kicked around. Also, the pawn can step forward and kick the knight away.
Sorry, that was a mouse slip. I meant f3. Definitely not f4 here in this position. Definitely kicking away this knight is on the cards. And talking about personality, I mean, I don't know too much about Denis Lazovic, who his coaches are, who his influencers are. But, I mean, it's just so consistent and so kind of pleasant to watch his style. Just seems harmonious. I mean, one moment ago, I was criticising, or at least really surprised by this knight landing on a4. Suddenly, it looks like the most kind of well-conducted manoeuvre in the world. Suddenly, these two knights are planning to land on c5. Suddenly, again, as Ivanka points out, this bishop is a huge target. This knight is getting kicked back. Everything seems to be flowing in White's direction, even though it's just these small, subtle nuances. Just beautiful.
And that's something that you pointed out in the earlier player profile that we had on Denis Lazovic, which we had earlier on the broadcast, where you said this is what really sets him apart from the other youngsters. This is maturity in the game that we see. These positional strategic concepts, rather than going for the direct lines of the trades that we were earlier pointing out, going for direct attack. And how much of a role does that play? Especially this is for people watching, because I think this is something that I've noticed a lot. In deciding to go e4 or d4 on move one, you start with the king's pawn opening or a queen's pawn opening. Is that a reflection of the kind of positions that you want?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of beginners, amateur players get this really wrong. They start by looking at the openings, looking at the first moves, and then they only think about the middle games later on. I think you should start by trying to work out what kind of middle game position you want, right? And maybe trying to look at your favorite player. If you like the way Denis plays, great, you know. You know, look at his middle games, and if you like the positions he's getting, then you go back and look at his openings and see how you get there. So it's kind of doing things in reverse, you know, just try to think what middle game you want, and the opening is just a means to get to that middle game, I think, in necessity. And you can do that in a number of ways. E4 will lead you into different kind of territories than d4 will, or, you know, 1b3 even. Why not? You know, you can do loads of funky stuff if you want to.
Cowboy stuff. Ivanka, 1e4, do you think that's more for people who have that liking for the aggressive styles, and the fact that we see Denis use these kind of positions which are more strategic is once again a reflection of the positions he likes to play, more strategic fights?
Yeah, definitely. And I was actually thinking about Denis Lazovic. You know, of course, he's from Belarus. And I was thinking, who's the most famous player from Belarus? And it's Boris Gelfand, right? Oh. And I feel like Denis has actually a style quite reminiscent of Boris. You know, he likes to play solid, has a good positional foundation, but at the same time is tactically very astute. And going back to your question about e4, actually I have a very simplistic answer there. Like, most people play the king's pawn, primarily because when we're all kids and we all learn the game, we're all taught scholar's mate trap. and you know, as kids, that's all we want to get on the board. We want to win the game in 3 moves. And then our journeys kind of progress there. And that's normally like, then we get trainers, and trainers kind of, they just kind of look at our styles and they look at what kind of positions that we like. If you like blocked maneuvering positions, pick up the queen's pawn. If you like open, going for gambits that Simon enjoys, pick up the king's pawn.
Yeah. I never pick up the king's pawn. I always play the queen's pawn. So it's quite weird. So you can, I mean, you can play lots of different openings in different ways.
And with everything that we've just discussed, bishop f5 on the board, David, g4 is the first move that comes to my mind. But given Dennis, oh my God, I was going to ask, will it happen or not?
Well, that's the thing. That's why Dennis is kind of, well, now reaching the elite of world chess and fighting really well against them. Simply, he knows when to kind of fight against his instincts, when to not play kind of stereotypically anymore. The problem is a lot of players, they know their style, they embrace their style, but they're so inflexible. They don't want to play aggressive chess at all, or they don't want to play positional chess, depending on which side of the fence you're on. And I mean, these top players, they kind of match it, they mix it, depending on the type of position, the specifics of the position. And yeah, White has weakened his king, not Denis Lazovic-esque, but in return, he's going to get the bishop pair. He's going to kick back this black knight from the center now. He's going to get some big strategic pluses. So it's kind of weighing up. Sometimes you need to take action. You can't just sit and be slow, maneuvering, kind of passive player forever. And Denis, suddenly changing the tempo, changing this kind of pace of the game. Interesting. Simon, do you like this? I know Jovanka loves pushing pawns, so I'm going to leave that for a second. But
yeah, I mean, I just really like in general the way that Denis is playing this game. I mean, it seems like black here has got a slightly cramped position, not really finding great squares to the pieces. And this star move and moving the knight to the side of the board to avoid exchanging pieces was a brilliant move, because you can see how now the black knights are just getting in the way of each other. They were trying to exchange one of them off, black was, but black hasn't managed to do that. And I can see a lot of interesting ideas here. I mean, you could push the h-pawn, you could capture the bishop, push the f-pawn. There's many advances on the king side, which are going to be quite threatening towards black here. And it's kind of risk-free. I mean, the white king could be exposed later on because you've moved your bodyguards away. They've kind of walked off, disappeared for a little bit. But that doesn't seem like it's going to be a real worrying factor. Maybe you can't take on e6 yet because of the check, but...
well, your idea of trapping the bishop comes into play.
Trapping, yeah, you could try to do that with with
f4.
Yeah, but I think this check comes first, unfortunately, which is a pity, that one there. But we can try to arrange that one. We can defend that pawn first by moving the queen up. It seems like white has a lot of options here, and black doesn't. Black is sort of struggling to find a plan here, suffocated pieces.
And wow, Denis Lazovic, he's continued. He said A, he might as well say B. He's throwing all of the kingside pawns forward, and no king shelter for his own king, but very, very aggressive. And of course, Abdusattorov has to take this knight, and he has just done. There was a huge threat of forking to minor pieces, so the black bishop had to leave the board in exchange for white's knight. And now Abdusattorov, this next move is slightly surprising to me. I thought, okay, it's a closed position. You're fighting against the bishop pair now, but he's opening things up. And what is the idea here for black? Suddenly it looks like white has so many pawn levers to really break open the position. Look out for this bishop as well on this long diagonal. Now there's no black dart square bishop. If you're able to open this up favorably later, could be devastating for black. He's played the move b5. Looks like a pawn sacrifice. This one is really exploding. Who's this going to favor? We see the evaluation bar maybe on white side, but Abdusattorov, it's more his type of position now.
And you were talking about the position going crazy and opening up. Well, Denis, he pushes in the center, and I'm so happy to see this move because this was my instinct as well. Any pawn sacrifice that involves pawn pushing, I'm there.
Yeah, this is beautiful, actually. Now you're attacking this bishop, trapping this bishop. I don't think you really want to go and grab this knight on the edge of the board. The bishop here, potentially more important. Look at the kind of weird pawn structure that we're left with here, but I think it's more about the fact that these black pawns on e7 and e6 are supremely weak. The king also a huge target. Bishop's superior to knights. If instead you take this pawn, then suddenly white takes the other way. And again, positional strategic advantage. Long term, you have the b pawn, which could become very strong. Connect it with the a pawn later. It's all about this bishop, though. All about the dark squares. And we talked about this poor piece earlier, kind of landing on a slightly odd square. It's still stuck back there. And looks like a big pawn to me.
Yeah. and so much danger. I mean, for instance, in this end position, you can almost see the queen and the bishop lining up in a battery and just targeting that king by dislodging the knight on f6.
Not just targeting the... Sorry, Ivanka, I was just going to add that not just targeting the king, but also that pawn on a7. So many... I know you want to go for the checkmate, but, you know, winning pawns can also win the game. But it's true, queen d4 is a really nice spot. d5, very nice move here. And what's the clock situation? It's pretty level, but body language expert coming in. Simon, what do you make of what's going on with Nodirbek head in hands?
He looks a bit stressed out, you know, the head in the hands. He was doing the glasses thing there. Wants to get some glasses, I think. Now he's ready to knock his opponent out. But no, he seems to... I think this is like yesterday. He got in real trouble against Fabiano quite early on. If we remember in that key game, we all thought he was going to lose. But he did actually turn it around. And again, I mean, this position, to my eyes, looks diabolical for Black. Black is just struggling with everything. I mean, he hasn't got a material advantage. White's got the two bishops. White's going to have an attack against Black's king. Where is the counterplay here? So it looks horrendous. But we saw him make it complicated yesterday, and that's what he needs to do here. He needs to try and like really mess up the position and sort of just complicate things. I mean, when you've got a worse position, this is the thing to do, right? I mean, you might as well complicate it because it doesn't matter at all.
And that's one of Nodirbek's big strengths, I feel. I remember that game that he had against Gukesh in the Olympiad. His ability to come back, his resourcefulness. Are you expecting him to be able to pull something like that in this kind of a position, David?
Oof. If it was against any other player, I mean, you're playing an informed Denis Lazovic, who really seems in the zone right now. But if it was anyone else, Abdusattorov, he'd maybe fancy his chances. Here, it feels like he's tried to provoke his opponent. He said, OK, bring your pawns at me, throw them at me. And Denis is just saying, yes, he's not scared. And I think that's just quite daunting, Abdusattorov, for him right now. He's tried to make it messy. He's trying his best, but the mess is just turning out in White's favour. I mean, I'm on Simon's side here. I just think the position is really ugly, unpleasant for Black. So any fight back will not just demand 3 or 4 creative, resourceful moves, but I think till the rest of the game now, he's going to have to really gamble. He's going to have to hope for a mistake, even from Denis Lazovic, and it doesn't look likely at this point. D5, just a beautiful move by White.
I like that comment. Denis, the D pawn. I honestly think that the names of pawns should be quite flexible. Shouldn't just be Harry, Simon. Shouldn't just be Gary. It can be whatever you want it to be. I actually call my A pawn Annie. And B Beth.
After Beth Harmon.
Of course.
Makes perfect sense. But this one move, I think Denis, the D pawn, could be the game changer in this one. Big trouble for Nodirbek, not just on the board, but the clock as well, as he is under 4 minutes. 2 moves come to mind here, the ones that we were talking about. You either grab the pawn on d5 or the knight at the edge of the board. Is there a third option, or is Nodirbek just trying to pick sort of the lesser evil?
I guess the third option would be picking up the Black Bishop and throwing it away. You could capture a couple of pawns and then take the White Knight on the edge. But he needed to, I think, keep his bishop on the board. And this position, as we discussed, it's not pleasant for Black, but at least this last move is quite clever. It's distracting the White Queen or White Bishop away from their ideal squares. We were talking about the White Queen landing on d4 in the centre, lining up with the bishop. At least that's going to take a few more moves. And, OK, the momentum, we see the bar changing, but the momentum, at least, on Abdusattorov's side, by momentum, I mean creating threats on every turn, hitting the White Knight now. Psychologically, at least, it scares your opponent. The more you threaten, the more you attack. They kind of take defensive measures. And, yeah, what does Denis do here? Does he kind of take a defensive move, or maybe there's something more aggressive, Simon?
I was thinking he could try f5 here, which is very interesting. I mean, just trying to open up the Black King immediately. But this is also a good move because I think Ivanka mentioned this queen just coming into d4 or Tanya, and the move played makes a lot of sense. You defend the knight and you just try to get the queen into the middle. f5 was interesting, but you probably don't need to play a move like that. There's a simple plan, right? Queen d4, g5, and Black resigns. And it's nice to have plans like that. So
let's just show that, Simon.
Yeah.
The queen will land, and this is just beautiful. Beautiful from Denis again. I've used that word too many times, beautiful, but in this game, but it's just so harmonious. Look at how these pieces combine, and g5, like you say, is it just unstoppable here? I just don't see any way. I mean, other than starting to run away with the Black King.
Yeah, it's horrible. I mean, you could try knight b6 and go for the ending, but that's probably just losing as well. So, I mean, it's really grim, this ending. Yeah. If you go for this, I mean, yeah.
Maybe you don't take, maybe there's something even better.
G5 straight away, but yeah, it's horrible as well. And it's a very simple plan. And I mean, look at the time as well. I mean, in these situations, having a simple plan, risk-free, I'd say at the moment, with a time advantage, this is tough for Black. Nodirbek is going to have to find some brilliant resources just to stay in the game here.
So it's not just the idea of checkmating Black's king on the dark squares, but the fact that you've got a bishop pair. All endings are also better for white. Piece trades also favor white because of the weakness of the pawns on the queen side. Nodirbek now touching the 2-minute mark. He has to try to create some practical chances. Jovanka, how would you approach this kind of a position? Is there something that comes to your mind here?
Yeah, there are a few moves that come to my mind. And first of all, you know, I feel that when your king is in danger, you should try to trade off pieces, especially the queens. So that would be the first move that I would kind of consider. I was looking at moves like the knight jumping into the b6, also maybe the queen coming into b4 just to stop white getting that beautiful queen on the d4 square. But instead, we have a move from Nodirbek. He has moved the rook to the open line. And, okay, so there is a threat here of maybe rook takes bishop?
Which one?
Yeah, well, there is an immediate one of rook takes the bishop on e2.
Yes.
But I was also wondering whether,
rook b2
as a last resort, say, for instance, the bishop gets attacks the rook.
Ooh, will we see that?
Maybe we can see some rook takes b2 bishop.
I think he has to, well, yeah, I mean, maybe...
He has to do something like that.
Yeah, rook d2 seems to... well, actually, there's a bit of a trick here. If you go bishop c3, there's rook takes bishop.
Oh, sneaky.
And that's another little...
It's on the board. Rook d2 played.
This is the kind of thing that Nodirbek needs to do. He needs to get active. He needs to create some tactical issues for Dennis. And, you know, it is a bit of a desperate situation, and he's got to play like this.
I've been feeling Dennis missed this one, to be honest. He's been playing really logical moves. I was just wondering about his accuracy until a moment ago, Dennis Lazovic. It feels like he's played perfect chess, but maybe this last move, allowing this pin, not ideal. As you both mentioned there, rook takes d3 is a serious threat, and I'm not sure how you guard against this. For example, the idea earlier was to push this pawn forward to try and break through on this diagonal with the queen and bishop, but suddenly there might be counterattacks, there might be threats. At the very least, Black can maybe cause chaos by taking this bishop. This is getting crazy suddenly. It's getting out of hand.
Wow.
And yeah, we know that that's what Nodirbek needs. He needs that chaos. He needs to unsettle Dennis. No obvious moves for white suddenly for the first time in this game.
He's forced Dennis to pause and take a think. We were thinking that the moves are very natural for white, so that is some success in a position to defend. And this is what we've been talking about. Nodirbek's incredible ability, his resourcefulness and resilience in a position where he is under pressure. Right now, even on the clock, under 2 minutes, pushing that pawn, the g-pawn ahead, putting pressure on that knight was the move that would come to your mind, but we saw the eval bar disapprove of that. Black has ideas of his own. And the other pawn break that I'm thinking about, David, is the f-pawn moving forward. I would be terrified of that one as well. You go f5, and you can even think about if Black recaptures that pawn, then you advance the g-pawn. I don't know if I want to take on f5 because bishop f5, notice how the bishop on d3 is pinned, but yes, we can probably just show that. This looks like big trouble. But I would love to destroy Black's kingside pawn structure and then hit that knight on f6.
I'm Team Tanya here, 100%.
I love it.
I love your move. I was thinking about it myself, and I was thinking this is the only way, because otherwise the Black king is safe as houses. And this way, you can cause some mischief.
Yeah, this looks really nice, actually. And one resource, the reason I wasn't so keen on playing g5 initially is because the Black bishop can come in, and there might be some serious threats against the White king suddenly, with the rook coming in with a check, the Black queen maybe coming into d2 afterwards. So yeah, Tanya, I love it. Just blocking this Black bishop.
Played it.
I didn't see bishop h3. That's an awesome resource, actually. I was wondering why the bar hated it so much, but bishop h3 suddenly turns it around. f5 on the board, Jovanka.
Woohoo!
Oof, nice move. And Maybe we can see what the computer suggests here. What does Stockfish say? Is there a defense for black? It looks deadly.
Have you been practicing your high fives?
That is so much better than our high fives.
Sorry. I was really impressed by that one. You actually hit hands properly there. Well done.
We need to practice ours now.
I think so, yeah. If you don't know what we're talking about, me and Tanya tried one in a video and it was a failure. It was an absolute failure.
I feel like no one would have noticed it had you not said it, Simon.
Now everyone's going to notice
Now
it.
everyone
Yeah,
knows.
It's true.
And suddenly, this position is really transformed. Black has had to give up material. That beautiful black rook on the second rank was about to get trapped, and there were deadly threats on the dark square diagonal. So rook takes d3 happened. The black rook gave itself up for a couple of minor pieces. And if we do a quick count, at least for now, black is doing well with 2 minor pieces, bishop, and, well, 2 knights actually for the white rook. But that 1 knight is about to get captured. And the only question here for Dennis is, can he secure the white king? And he does it. Rook f2, really nice move. The rook is going to shield the white king from any checks. And actually, it's the black king now that's facing real peril.
That's a clinical play by the 16-year-olds. Rook f2, just to defend the king. And look at that. He offers a trade of queens. He's
played so well, hasn't he, in this game? I mean, a really impressive game. I mean, he was just better throughout. And, yeah, I mean, just kind of a little bit speechless, actually, the way he's played. I mean, at such a young age to just outplay, a player of Nodirbek's quality. The tactics were perfect. He struck when he needed to. This f5 move, not the easiest move to find. And even this d5 move, it's the 2 pawn breaks, which were beautiful. And I can't see any way that black can really save this now. The only chance is to try and get down near to the white king, but there's no way for it to infiltrate. And I'm hoping for a finish with rook g2, king h8, and a queen f6, just to put the icing on the cake here. But rook g2 just looks really strong.
Oh, this is the move I wanted to see on the board.
Pawn grabber.
Yeah, because the idea also is just to give a check with the rook on g2 and then check on the 8th line with the queen, and done and dusted.
Yeah, this is game over. I mean, definitely.
Let's not forget the B pawn is Simon just 3 squares away from queening. You can always have that as a resource as well. The last move by Nodirbek, making sure that the knight can at least block a check on the 8th rank. The game still keeps going, but probably not for long.
Yeah, it's going to be a pincer movement soon against that black king using the open g-file and the back rank. And, wow, he even eliminates the best defender. That black knight was able to block the back rank, so why not get rid of it? And those are some ugly pawns, those tripled F pawns. Not just that, but the black king is walking into danger.
And just look at the way that Dennis just puts his queen on such a good square, controlling all the possible checks from the black queen. And now it's going to be checkmate. Yeah. The rook is going to come up to the g8 square and, it is over. With 14 seconds and ticking down, Nodirbek has no hope.
I think he's going to resign. 5 seconds
he's
now.
He's going to let his clock run down.
Body language, he looks like he's going to move, but he will get checkmated.
And he makes a move with less than a second on the clock. He does come up with the king. David, is there a finish blow? I do see a check on This is an incredible technique by Dennis Lazovic. Placing the queen, taking care of all the checks, and now we're going to see a mate on the board. And there it is. Checkmate by Dennis Lazovic in game 1 against Nodirbek Abdusattorov. He has done it again. The bottle comes out, takes a sip. You know that's a bad sign. Immense confidence by the youngest ever player in the Champions Chess Tour. David, once again, a lot to choose from in this one. We see Nodirbek on our screen. He's made a comeback before. You can't write him off. He did it against Fabi. Can he do it again? What a game it was. And David, while there are a lot of strategic and tactical points to pick from, what was the big highlight for you in this one?
It were those pawn breakthroughs. We saw it in this position. Dennis Lazovic, maybe one of the smoothest games we've seen throughout the Champions Chess Tour this season. It was here, f5, breaking through with this pawn first, forcing the black pawn to capture, and now only g5, trying to crash through on the diagonal. These pawn moves, these really sophisticated and accurate moves really did bank the victory. Rook takes d3, now deflecting away the white queen was Abdusattorov's best try, but as we saw a bit later on, it was the accuracy of this move, the final clincher, rook to f2, blocking any checks first of all, but also going for the black king. And with this series of tactics, Nodirbek did crash to defeat, but we have to praise Denis Lazovic for the level of accuracy, even offering a queen trade now to cement his material advantage.
Felt like the perfect combination between aggressive tactical play at the right time, bringing in the breaks along with the positional strategic masterpiece that we just saw. Flawless chess in round one sees Denis Lazovic take the lead in their best of two. Nodirbek Abdusattorov has to win game 2 on demand and do what he did yesterday, make a comeback, take it to Armageddon. Can he do it? We find out after this break.
1 minute, 10 seconds. Every second counts. Hikaru Nakamura is surviving.
We're rooking 8. Whoa! He blundered his queen. He's got 40 more seconds. He needs to burn.
Rookie's
losing. Oh my God, he's gonna flag. No! He flagged! He flagged! He flagged! Oh my God! He made it! Oh my God! Strong stalemate! Oh, get him on the board!
He's just gonna move quickly.
Oh! Oh my gosh!
September bots are here, and it's time for a monumental clash. This barbarian might not crush you on the board, but he certainly can crush you with the board. Speaking of crushing, this giant is a living siege tower. Usually found in groups, goblins are fond of sharp, pointy objects and other people's pieces. The battle-hardened Valkyrie might give you a game once she's done arm wrestling a golem. This hog rider and his noble steed might give you a headache or two. Skeletons adore her, foes fear her. You'll need to bring your A game if you want to beat this witch. Yes, that probably is a rabbit up his sleeve, or a huge fireball with your name on it. We hear wizards are pretty good at chess. Not just a killing machine, Pekka loves tiny butterflies. But you're probably not a butterfly, so watch out. The Archer Queen thinks highly of herself, and for good reason. She's a skilled tactician, deadly opponent, and your worst nightmare. Play them all on chess.com.
It doesn't look like much, but neither would a Sicilian defense to the untrained eye. This is a performance enhancer. You don't see it? How about now? Manage your air quality, sharpen your performance, change the game with Air Things.
Denis Lazovic takes the lead in his match against Nodirbek Abdusattorov. The fight is on to play in the losers final against Alireza for that seat to the grand final to fight against Magnus Carlsen. But Nodirbek Abdusattorov, you cannot write him off. He's made the comeback before. He needs to win on demand. We've seen him be able to do it against the very best in the world. He is the youngest ever World Rapid champion and an absolute superstar. Nodirbek has what it takes to be the future world champion, but can he make a comeback? And here's David Howell on what makes Nodirbek so strong.
Nodirbek Abdusattorov is a phenomenon. The teenage prodigy from Uzbekistan had his first big breakthrough in 2021 when he won the World Rapid Championship. Since then, he has smashed through the 2700 barrier and even led his country to their first ever gold medals at an Olympiad. It is Abdusattorov's endgame skills that truly set him apart from his peers. He has a very mature approach to the endgame, as evidenced by this win against Magnus Carlsen in the 2021 World Rapid Championship. In this position, Abdusattorov had white. He is ahead in this race, white's pawn only being 1 square away from promotion. And after a careless move by Magnus, playing the pawn to b4, he didn't get tempted. He wasn't greedy. He did not capture this pawn, instead delivering a very accurate check. This immediately provoked a mistake from Carlsen. The endgame is winning for white anyway, but Carlsen advanced his king to the corner, and this cross-check, forcing the queen exchange, won the game for Abdusattorov. After the queens disappeared, white is about to make a new queen, and he went on to win the game.
Nodirbek Abdusattorov, definitely a player to watch out for. He did win the Cheskit Cup and booked his spot into the season and final, won the Olympic gold medal for his country. The Uzbek phenom continues to be at the top of the game. And speaking of the new generation that is shaking up the world of elite, we did ask our experts about the top 5 players to watch out for in 2024. I'm going to start with David, your list.
Oh, this is a tough one. I wish we could choose more than 5, but I've chosen 5 names that I'm excited to watch, excited to follow their games, and it starts with Wei Yi at number 5. Chinese phenomenon, youngest player to cross 2,700. He has stalled a bit, but I feel he's ready for his next big leap. Then Eric Geisy, just because I felt bad not including him in my under 20 now that he is 20 years old. Next, Nijat Abasov, just after his performance at the World Cup. I had to include him. I'm excited to see whether he can make an even bigger leap. And Denis Lazovic at number 2. I'm really glad he's justified my prediction here in this tournament. And top, I've gone for Alexei Sarana, European champion and another man in form.
Yeah. That's a really great list, and especially you got Denis Lazovic in, who probably many did not know about before this event. We've seen him in online tournaments, but the performance here, phenomenal. Jovanka, what is your top 5? Does Dan Laz make it into that list?
No. No, I must be honest. Okay, so number 5, I have Lei Tingjie. Now, she really impressed me in the Women's World Championship match. She wasn't successful, but I want to see what she's going to get up to. Then number 4, world champion, Ding Liren. You know, we've got to follow him. What kind of a world champion will he be? And then I have Nodirbek Abdusattorov and Gukash. And then finally, Pragnananda. He's like a mini Vishy Anand, and I can't wait to see what he's going to get up to in 2024.
Your pick of number 4, Ding Liren, world champion, one to watch out for. But where is he? We haven't seen him in action since World Championship. Is that something that surprised you, Simon? And who makes it to your top 5?
Yeah, I'm a bit surprised about Ding, but I mean, he's world champion. He might as well retire now or chill out for a little bit, enjoy it. My top 5, I've gone for Nodirbek at number 5, and he's just a really exciting player to watch. He's having a tough time here, but doesn't matter. Then I've gone for Salimova, who is the Bulgarian ladies player. And number 4, I was really impressed with her play in the World Cup, and I loved her style of play. She's really aggressive. Number 3, Ricky Rapport. And Richard, I just love the way he plays chess again. You know, he's got this crazy, unconventional style. So it's always a joy to watch his play. You got to have Prag. Prag's just everywhere now. So I've got to put Prag in. There you go. Prag's at number 2 because, you know, he's a genius and a very exciting player to watch. And the last player, it's a bit boring, isn't it? But Magnus Carlsen, because he's the best player in the world, I think. And
very safe.
Yeah, it is very safe, that one. I like watching the best player, though. Just being honest, you know.
Yeah.
I might learn something.
Where is Ding Liren? The question that we had, well, he will be in action next week in Chess.com Speed Chess Championship, and you don't want to miss that. We've had some amazing lists. I'm going to quickly go through mine. Oh, my gosh. My number 5 is Hans Niemann. I mean, we want to see what he brings on. He's back. He's been reinstated to come back on Chess.com. What does Hans bring back when he'll play these tournaments? I think he's one to watch out for in 2024. I also have the 13-year-old Alice Lee, who has been so impressive in these last few months over the board, as well as in online chess. What a performance in the Pro Chess League she had. Nurgul Salimova, as did you, Simon, because of her incredible run in the World Cup. The 20-year-old, I want to see what happens next year and how far she goes. Then at number 2, it is Gukesh. He's at world number 8. He's only 17 years old. The next year is so important. He is on the brink of qualification for the candidates, but he needs to perform well in the FIDE circuit. For me, does he make it or not? And of course, number 1 has to be Prag and what he does in the 2024 candidates. Are you guys excited to see Hans back?
Yep. I mean, I genuinely am, especially if he's in the same tournament as Magnus. It'll add a bit of extra spice.
Chess boxing.
Well, chess boxing for another day. Right now, it is the gloves are on in the Julius Baer Generation Cup as Nodirbek needs to make his comeback against Denis Lazovic. Denis needs only a draw to advance through and face Alireza, Firouzja. Nodirbek there thinking about his approach in the next game. What does he need to do to switch this up?
The good thing is he has a track record. He needs to do what he does best, Abdusattorov, and really set the board alight. He's done it against Fabiano. He's done it in previous events multiple times. He did it against Lev and beat him in 21 moves as white. But he goes to a solid opening. I'm really surprised by this. No e4. And, okay, it's what we call the Nimzo Indian, where black brings out his dark squared bishop early, trades it off. And this queen c2 variation where white doesn't accept a set of double pawns, which is typical for this opening. This has a rock-solid reputation for both sides, and this is the first kind of rare move. It's new to me, I must admit. Bishop to d2. Normally that bishop zooms further out to pin black's knight on f6. Lands on the g5 square often, but okay, this is his big idea. Are we impressed by this?
He's really good with white pieces, Nodirbek, so it's going to be interesting to see how this progresses. I mean, he's one of the best players in the world, I think, with white. He plays very aggressively with d4. I'm not actually surprised he played d4, because the danger of playing e4 is obviously the horrible Berlin, which Denis plays so well. But as you say, this choice of variation, it does have a solid reputation. Black's got a lovely bishop when that bishop develops to the long diagonal, and you know, white's going to have to prove something here. White does have more pawns in the centre. I'd love to see white castling queenside, but that's not going to happen. I'd love to see it, but no, everyone's shaking their head at me, understandably. But yeah, we're going to have to see how it develops and what the idea is there.
It's quite interesting that Nodirbek with the white pieces has chosen to open with many different alternatives. Like I can remember against Elianov, he was quite successful with the king's pawn, and then against Fabi yesterday, it was the knight developing to f3, and then there's some Reti structure. There it wasn't so successful. Now he switched to the queen's pawn. I mean, how easy is it just to flick between these type of strategies?
It's definitely not easy. You need kind of a vast encyclopedia of knowledge, opening knowledge in your mind. These days, I only do it. I mix and match my first moves just kind of on a whim, depending on my mood that morning. But of course, it's not easy, and it comes with risk attached if your opponents are really, really well prepared. This idea, this kind of whole variation that we've seen right now on the board, white has lost a lot of time with his queen. I think this is the 4th time the white queen has moved, and she's back on a passive square. I must admit, I use this quite a lot, but only when I'm willing to kind of maybe make a draw if my opponent plays well. It's very risk-free for white usually, but in a must-win situation, it's not the normal kind of recipe for success. White has the bishop pair, but look at white's development. White's king, like you said, Simon, doesn't really want to castle queenside, but it means you're stuck in the centre for a long, long time.
And the one good thing for Nodirbek is that he's got more time on the clock than what he started with, while Denis has almost burnt close to 3 minutes. David, I also have played this opening and totally agree with what you said. But the one thing that black always needs to watch out for, especially around white king, right? The big question where it goes is that white often just literally doesn't care and just advances the e-pawn. And the whole point is that if you do take on f1, the king finds itself pretty safe on that f1 square, while I gain more space on the center. Knight d7 played, e4 is a move that I have seen before and I've faced it. And it does get pretty complicated in the middle game. So even though it might seem toothless right now, this could get exciting very soon if Nodirbek gets ambitious in the center.
Yeah, and I think we might well see this variation, Tanya. There we go. He has just played e4, so this is the game situation. We will most likely see a trade of bishops on f1. I don't think you really want to drop back as black. This bishop is attacked. If you drop back, white is simply going to get an attack for free, potentially on this diagonal. And now white can castle, and you don't have to worry at all about the white king there. So we'll see that trade. And Tanya, what would the plans be? You mentioned that it could get quite dynamic, imbalanced still. full of life, this position?
First, I completely agree that you can't afford to fall back with the bishop because white already has a bishop pair advantage and the central control. And that bishop d3, ideas of e5 coming in, hitting on h7 with the battery. I really think that black has to trade the bishop and at least in return also make development a little more difficult for white. The plans here can often be harry the h-pawn. Going up the board, you can use that way to get your rook into the game. You can go h4, h5. The rook, we can see a potential rook lift as well. That rook from a1 can come into the center of the board. Meanwhile, for black, when your opponent is playing on the flank, traditional chess wisdom, you want to try and strike in the center. I would be looking for c5 if I was playing black here.
Yeah, I mean, I too would also be looking for that c5 pawn break, primarily because I don't really like backward pawns. I like the little guys. I want to keep them intact. And you can even see that that pawn on c7 could be a potential weakness in an endgame if it can't move forward. And there you see David with the arrow. Highlighting my points.
It makes a lot of sense to throw this pawn forward now. I wonder what's making Denis Lazovic pause. This is kind of thematic. It's very usual in this type of opening. So maybe there's something that scares him right now in this moment.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder. I kind of like this idea. This is clearly Nodirbek's preparation. He's clearly checked this with a computer, and he does have this very aggressive idea of just going for checkmate on h7. Again, I don't believe it's going to work here, but you can try it because it does, I believe, force g6 now, and g6 is not really a move you want to play. And something like queen e4 is, again, it is something you have to calculate. It might not work, but you have to calculate this. And again, it might not be the right time to play it here, but that queen coming to h4, followed up by g4, is a very forcing line. So I expect both players are just having a look at this now. Well, Denis is, and Nodirbek's had the advantage already analysing this. And I guess David, pawn takes pawn, queen h4, it's quite interesting there, but we have a move on the board, okay.
But I think precisely because of that variation, Simon, black has actually moved the rook in order to cover the h7 point with a knight retreating to f8.
Yeah, we all know the saying, knight on f8, no mate.
Yeah. What other ones do they have about the knight on f8? Knight on f8.
You gotta hate.
Crate's a crate. You gotta hate the knight on f8. The knight on f8.
Ain't finding a date.
Ain't finding a date. The knight on f8 ain't finding no date.
It's also next to the king, so we could also say a knight is a king's best friend.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, best mate.
Yeah, best mate. Yeah. There you go. I think we need some help there. From
Taking care of the king's feet. That one works.
Yeah. Yeah, look at us, budding poets.
Yeah, wow.
Although you guys were, not me.
And yeah, that knight is most likely going to end on f8 if white goes for an attack. But of course, Abdusattorov doesn't want to rush towards that, doesn't want to show his hand yet. So he brought his rook to the center, white's rook landing on d1, staring down at the black queen. If the position opens up, then the last thing you want is your queen stared down by an enemy rook. So queen to c8 there, just getting out the way. Makes a lot of sense. Potentially as well, coming out with a check on a6, white's king on the light squares. And he's ready, I think, to break out with c5 in the next move or two. Abdusattorov certainly with questions to answer here if he wants to fight for an advantage. The one downside that I was kind of alluding to earlier with this whole variation is if black is really accurate and strikes with c5, that type of move at the right time, it could fizzle out very quickly. Yeah, you have a position that's full of life, very rich right now, but that could all change in the course of one or two moves.
Yeah, I was thinking that white ideally would like to meet black's c5 move with d5. Maybe this is why white's put his rook in the center of the board, because I agree what you're saying there, David. If c5 happens and white takes on c5, you get a very symmetrical position, and also the white king is looking pretty stupid then. And I just can't. If anything, I expect white's a little bit worse here. White won't be able to win. So I think white's got to find a way to meet this c5 move, and something like in the current position, moving the bishop so you can push the pawn in the middle. Would make some sense to me, not to the evaluation bar, but that obviously fails to something.
And could you be like super maximalist? Maybe not the bishop move, but I was thinking try to stop c5, just kill the idea before it even hatches. Like I'm thinking b2, b4.
Yeah, you have to get this check as well. I mean, yeah, maybe that works.
The evaluation bar is like, no, you're just losing a pawn. And after all my sayings about Yeah, I don't know.
The queen's offside there as well. I mean, you're sacrificing a pawn, though.
I know.
Yeah, careful.
That's why immediately
Careful.
my instinct is rewind.
Yeah.
I made a mistake.
Yeah. So it's not an easy position, is it, David, to actually... Because what Black's plan is quite simple, right? C5. So White's got to do something about that idea.
Yeah. And I suddenly thought about something. What happens if the queen dives all the way to the C6 square? Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, definitely on the cards. Let's jump back into the board and show this. Queen to c6. Wow, really aggressive there, Jovanka, not allowing Black's main push. So how to solve this? Actually, the more I look at this, the more I like it. The white queen does hold on to this pawn as well. So what next?
Do you bring the queen to d3, maybe?
Ooh, okay, aggressive check. I run.
Or e2, maybe d3 is a bit more...
Sorry, me and my arrows there. Queen to d3, queen to e2, lots of tempting options. This one looks really pleasant, I've got to say, pinning this bishop as well. Yeah, attacking this pawn. Maybe this is something that he has to evaluate now, Nodirbek Abdusattorov, because if not for this queen intrusion, then queen to c6 looks nice. Okay, he's gone for h4 instead.
I like it. I like this idea of h4, and I think this is the moment that Black has to strike in the center. We keep talking about a flank attack. You need to go in with trying to target the center. And David, would you say that this is exactly the kind of position that you meant when you say that once Black gets a successful c5 in, you neutralize a lot of White's advantages in the position?
Yeah, I'm assuming Dennis is going to play that because all of his previous moves have been building up to this pawn push. C5 would be consistent now, and there we go, on the board, played. And yeah, this is the big moment. This is the critical moment. If Abdusattorov doesn't find anything in the next 2 or 3 moves, then this is just going to fizzle out. I think he might just be eliminated from the tournament. But if he can find something, if h4 is connected with some kingside attack, then we might see fireworks and we might see this game kind of really come to life. But okay, he's going for it. He has to. Going all in now.
Yeah, he's got to go for the attack, and he is. Yeah, I mean, this is, I guess, pretty much forcing the knight to retreat. You don't want to play g6 here because that's a major hook in the position. And as you say, David, White has to play like this. White's got to win this game to stay in the competition. But after the knight retreats, what's he going to do next?
Good question. This white knight, I guess, can somehow sneak back and into the juicy d6 square. d6 is a nice outpost potentially for the white knight, but I'm not sure how you time that. And yeah, I mean, it feels like Dennis is going to retreat his knight back to f8, especially after all those rhymes. I think we'd be let down. We'd be disappointed if he didn't.
I mean, I can't see him going g6.
Oh, another move.
Wow, that's
a big one.
Did not expect that one. I mean, at all.
That's a maximalist move if there ever was one, right?
Yeah.
And
it wasn't even on our radar.
No, because it's such a committal move, right? Because after this is the move that all streamers are obliged to make en passant. And yeah, you have to capture with the knight, and you do ruin your pawn structure. But
Jovanka, did you see that? Nodirbek, he was almost pleased to see f5 on the board. Like, he kind of gets the kind of position that he wants to fight in then.
Yeah, suddenly now Black has a weakness here forever on e6. Let's just show that action replay one more time. We were expecting knight back to f8, just kind of nice harmonious pawn structure in front of the Black king, super safe forever. Maybe the one downside is later the white knight can sneak in. I'm not sure when that would occur, but if you compare that to the current position after f5 en passant, taking the pawn as if it just moved 1 square, special move there, knight takes f6, and what we're left with after a series of trades on the c5 square, I'm really hating this Black pawn structure. Okay, he's not going to get checkmated, but these pawns are ruined. And okay, he's going for them now immediately, Abdusattorov. It's a different type of position. Maybe Lazovic is just saying, okay, I trust myself more in endgames rather than a middle game where you're attacking me. But committal stuff. Who do we... well, I was going to say who do we like here, but I think I can guess everyone's answer. White?
Yeah. I mean, White has more targets to attack, and this last move is quite clever. The bishop coming back. I suppose Black does have some positives as well, though. I mean, Black's got this rook on the open file. The Black knight in the centre. Okay, maybe it's not doing a great deal, but it is still in a nice central square. And White's coordination, if White was castled here, for example, on the rook on h1, I mean, you could try castling here. You might get in a bit of trouble, but that rook is ready to come out to h3. But at the moment, it's a little bit of discombobulation going on there. It's a little bit blocked up. So But yeah, I agree. I take white here all the time because black's pawn weaknesses, and black's got to keep playing active here, I think. Otherwise, those pawn weaknesses will tell.
Yep, he's advanced pawn to e5, makes a lot of sense. And again, I think that kind of comment I made a few moves ago is still relevant. The next few moves might decide this. Again, Abdusattorov needs to keep the accuracy, needs to keep the energy here, needs to somehow maybe win a pawn in the next few moves, or at least activate that white rook on h1. Otherwise, Lazovic should be pretty happy.
But that last move by Dennis, right, pushing that pawn to e5, it not only defends the pawn, but also is threatening to jump in with that central knight to f4, where you take away that h3 square from the rook developing, and if white is forced to trade the bishop, the dark squared bishop, for one of the knights, then b2 can become a real target for black. One rook already lined up. Is knight f4 a defensive resource in this position for Denlaz? Ivanka?
Yeah, it definitely is a move that he needs to consider, because that knight on f4 will then jump to another square, the d3 square, where it can attack the rook and the bishop. So that is something to monitor. But one of the things that you have to look at is also you have to look at the future, and you try to predict what white will play in anticipation. And there we do see a move. The knights have been traded off the board. And
knight f4 now?
Knight f4 now is definitely a possibility, with the same idea of coming in to attack the bishop.
On the board.
Nice prediction there, Tanya.
Yeah,
and
nicely spot.
Really important move. I think without this, maybe black was in some trouble, but yeah, just to show bishop takes knight, looks like it wins a pawn, but no. After you take this one, black is actually maybe even better here with severe threats against the white king, at least active pieces and close to safety at least. This one is going to be a draw at best for white. So what to do even? This might be the clincher. Knight to d3 coming. No way to keep this game going for Abdusattorov without simplifications into a drawish endgame.
Can you try to control the d3 square?
How do you do it?
Well, this is the problem, right? Because at first I was thinking something mundane, like moving the rook back to e3, but then I was like, no, Yovi, you're going backwards. And of course, all black needs to do is just start activating other pieces. And yeah, David's highlighting all the reasons why one should not play passively.
Yeah, white's just too slow. This is all about this rook on h1, unable to join the fun. And the king slightly misplaced. Just swap them round and maybe you're doing okay.
Did you catch that rhyme? The rook on h1, unable to join the fun.
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
definitely meant that.
Right time.
Very smooth. Yeah. Yeah, he's just playing so well, isn't he? I mean, again, Dennis, 15 or 16? I should know this.
16.
16.
Became a grandmaster at 15 last year.
Right, yeah, I mean, but the way he's playing is just so impressive, to take away the sting from quite a dangerous looking attack. And it never looked dangerous the way he played it. I mean, he just keeps finding the right answer. And even this knight f4, I have to say, it wasn't obvious to me at all. Obvious to great minds, but I mean, but it wasn't obvious at all. And I can't. And look at this, more pieces getting exchanged. We know that all rook and pawn endings are drawn, and this one. I mean, black's pawns are still weaker than white's pawns, right? So there is some chance, but of course, it should be a draw now with correct play. But that white rook is going to come over. It's going to start targeting black's queenside pawns. So you need to play accurately here with black. I mean, maybe you rook b8 or something, but it should be a draw. But white can push a little bit here and must push as well.
That's clever what Abdusattorov did there. I was showing a variation with all rooks on the board, and black was clearly more active and doing very well. But trading off one set of rooks and then activating, better late than never. And yeah, if that black f4 pawn was slightly further back, I think instant draw. But still a little bit of accuracy needed for Dennis.
Yeah. I agree with you, David, because once the pawn is on b3, white's rook defends it, and white's king can find its way to c4. Just walk along on the light squares and start targeting black's weaknesses. It's not over yet. Yes, the position's level, and of course the age-old saying, all rook pawn endings are draw, and we've got Ivanka shaking her head. She doesn't believe in it.
Well, it's kind of true, like 40% of the time. So maybe not. Yeah, no, I was actually shaking my head because it's not such an easy draw, right, for black, because this is the whole point. The rook is going to defend the a3 pawn from the a5 square and force the black rook to sound the retreat.
F3, I think, is a
yeah.
class move here.
Active.
Yeah, I mean, I think the real problem is this F pawn, because you can go one pawn down in a rook and pawn ending as long as your opponent's rook is passive. And actually, the white rook will probably take the A7 pawn. You don't want to defend passively. This is like the big mistake. So I think a lot of people might move their rook back here, as David's highlighting, and moving the rook back, to my eyes, looks like something I'd always avoid in a rook and pawn, and you just try to keep as active as you can, and you might lose that advanced pawn, still be under pressure. Might be okay, but he's played a move though.
It's your move, Simon.
Yeah, and this just simplifies the position even more, and it should be a technical draw now. But of course, white's pawn up, so white can push it.
Ooh, can you though? The problem is this pawn is just dropping next move unless you play this move king to g2, and once your king is stuck over here, it's never going to get active and help the advance of this pawn a bit later. Black's got the perfect setup, and just these two pawns nice and safe. The black king defends them. As soon as the white pawn starts moving, you go behind, under lock and key, under watchful gaze, this pawn, and even if you advance it to the 7th rank, you're not getting any further. The white rook will actually be passive, stuck in front of it. Denis Lazovic, I've seen him play blitz, bullet so much, and he's so good at defending these positions. I think he's done everything right. Like you said, Simon, going active, not caring about number of pawns. It's more about just the vibrancy of the pieces, and this looks like it's close to a draw right now, and I think he's going to clinch it.
Denis needs only a draw to advance to the match against Alireza. He is very close to getting that draw that he needs, but still an extra pawn. He's going to fight this out till the end. Under the 4-minute mark, is clock going to be a factor?
Well, it always is a factor, right? Especially if you start to get into your own mind and start just double guessing your decisions. So, I mean, never ever rule out that possibility. But Black does have a straightforward plan, as David indicated. It's all just about getting behind that passed A pawn with the rook and then just holding the position. And there we see Denis just solidifying his pawns there on the right side of the board.
It's all about activity, right? And I think, Simon, that move F3 at that right moment, it kind of just made Black's life so much easier going forward rather than being on the passive defense. You've got an active rook, you've got an active king, you've destroyed all of White's, made all of White's pawns weak, making it very difficult for the white king to find its way to the queen side to assist the A pawn in advancing. But for Nodirbek, he has to play this out till the end. You know, you can't give up right now. I'm just trying to think, what are the different ways, the different plans in which we can actually start pushing the A pawn? Any ideas?
Could you try to run with the king?
I mean, I think this rook f4 is what I'd try, because there's that, you know, we talked about this in another game, that when you have the extra pawn, where do you want your rook when you're attacking? The worst place is in front of the pawn. The second best place, or second worst place, is next to the pawn, and the ideal place is behind the pawn. So now he's got his rook next to the pawn. The way you would try to win this is to bring your king over. So you try to defend your pawns. The problem is the white pawns on the king side, on the right-hand side, they're so weak. They're split pawns, and this makes any winning plan really hard. I mean, you can try to go king b2 and win like this, and he's got to try that, I think.
What if you go forward with your king at some point? Can White actually try to get that king to e4, push that f-pawn one step ahead so that you've got all your pawns in the 4th rank, and then start marching with the king to the left side of the board?
Yeah, I mean, I think this rook f4 has helped, hasn't it? White quite a lot, actually. I mean, I'm sure Denis knows what he's doing, but it seems to have helped White.
Yeah, I actually had a super similar situation, and you always have to remember when you're defending, use both of your main pieces, and the king is also an active attacker in certain situations. So if the white king moves to the center, perhaps the black king can also step up and try to go for the H pawn, which is loose, it's weak.
That's a great point, and I think that's what explains the move king to the edge of the board, so that it stops White's king from actually getting to that queen side, because you're tied down defending the pawns. It's getting tougher for Nodirbek Abdusattorov, who is staring at elimination right now, unless he finds a way to convert this rook pawn ending. How impressive has Denis Lazovic been in this tournament? I mean, he makes his debut into the Champions Chess Top, playing in sort of the big boys club, and yeah, he might be playing against Alireza for a spot in the grand final.
Yeah, he's been good, hasn't he? He's been really good. I mean, just the maturity of his play has been exceptional, and he's, you know, I don't know many 15-year-olds that play like this. That's for sure. Were you playing like this, David, at 15? I mean, you were a grandmaster at 15, were you? Or
only just after I turned 16, so he's got got a bit of time on me. And I mean, it's not just that. We shouldn't forget the stakes at play in this match. Whoever wins this one qualifies automatically for Division 1 in the next tournament. And for Denis Lazovic's chances on overall kind of tour points, this could be vital. If he kind of clinches this win, no matter his result against Alireza, he'll bank a lot of tour points and he'll be in Division 1 next time with another shot. So I think he's actually on the leaderboard going to be a big favourite to get to Toronto if he can just hold this game. And yeah, his accuracy levels as well. I saw a comment earlier from our Twitch chat, and it was talking about it's crazy how this evaluation bar's just stayed in the middle the whole game. I wouldn't be surprised if both players are in the high 90s here in accuracy level. I have the stats right in front of me. Wow. Guess what? White has played at a 99.4% accuracy. Black, 99.5%. So, perfect.
Unreal.
That is incredible.
And you know what they say, right? If you play a perfect game of chess, draw is the most likely outcome.
Yeah, and trust me, anyone who's analysed chess openings, they know that sometimes this is the result. You play a perfect opening, perfect middle game, you get to an endgame. Black's often just a pawn down, but as long as you're active enough, as long as you know what type of endgames are drawn, these rook and pawn, these infamous rook and pawn endgames where it's just a rook's pawn and A or H pawns, yeah, the top players, they study this for breakfast. They've been looking at this. Denis, he might only be 16, but he's probably been studying this since he was 7, 8 years old, this type of position. So, yeah, just perfect chess, perfect game. And look at how just classy it's been. Black's rook tying down the white rook, which can barely move off the 4th rank. White's king is really stuck in no man's land. It wants to start running over to the A file to help its pawn, but the black king is poised, ready to start marching forward. And it would become a race. I think at some point, Abdusattorov has to initiate that race. Unfortunately, though, black just looks ready. Looks poised, quick enough.
I mean, I guess he's got to try moving the white king towards his pawn to support it at some point, but he's very slow in the race, and the black king is ready to come forwards then. So, you know, he's spending his time now to try and find a way through, but you can't really fault either of them, though, if their accuracy is 99.5%, as I'm seeing both of them. I mean, you can't really say it's, you know, you can't really say it's a bad game. Maybe a bad choice of opening. I mean, David, you're quite critical of White's opening here, and maybe that was spot on. You know, even though he's got an extra pawn, it's not enough to win. Yeah, for the match situation and for the opponent, I mean, for himself, Abdusattorov didn't seem true to his style. So, yeah, maybe just that small opening choice, and this is the result.
And another player who is finding his way through in Division 3 is Botnik. He has defeated Gata Kamsky and advances to the losers final. He will be playing against another youngster, Sam Sevian, for a spot into the grand final to face Shakhriyar Mamedyarov. So Botnik has won his match. Big matches in Division 3. There are tour points and money on the line for the players. You can check out all the action on Grandmaster Ben Feingold's channel. Meanwhile, Nodirbek trying to create some action here, shuffling around, but the last few moves, we haven't really seen progress from White.
No, but he has the time. Like, he has the time to perhaps make some moves that threaten, like, some ideas, and then switch up at a later stage. And there we do see the Black King advance to attack the H4 pawn.
So let's break this down. What White needs is to get the king to the queen side, and then it's winning, right? If you can get your king without losing either of the 2 pawns, David, you've got a real shot at this. Yeah. So what happens if you get all the way to the B2 square that we're seeing, step by step? That rook on F4 is actually currently defending all 3 pawns. Leave that rook there, march with your king. How is Black still holding this?
Yeah, this is a really nice, instructive move there from Denis Lazovic. He basically immobilized White's army here. If the White King had continued its journey, he was ready to play the move G5. And look at the White Rook. This poor Rook, it wants to defend this pawn, it wants to defend the F pawn, but it's getting kicked away, and you can't hold both. White's King just 1 move away. If it could land on B2 now, maybe some winning chances, but yeah, here simply the White Rook is overstretched, overworked, and this was impossible. So let's catch up with the game. Something similar happened, but White's King staying in touch with its pawn. And now the problem is, after, for example, a rook check, the White King, where does it go? If it steps forward, the Black King might start coming in. And if you go back, of course, then you're no nearer supporting this White's pawn advance later on. OK, he has gone forward, king to E4. And the question is, does Lazovic here even need to do anything? Say black even waits, even if black drops back. What is the winning plan for white? The white king is tied down defending this pawn. I'm struggling to see it.
I mean, could it be possible now to switch to the old, give a check to the king and get the rook in front of its own pawn?
You go in front and maybe now you try and race the white rook forward and then try to push the pawn as far down the board as possible, then getting out the way with the check, then promoting the pawn. The problem is it takes a lot of moves. I can't even count that far ahead. And meanwhile, Lazovic does indeed just wait with his king. And I think we'll see this exactly play out, Jovanka. I think you're right. Maybe the only possible winning plan for black. I'm not sure whether you go back or forward now. But either way, should still be a draw. You just have to be slightly careful. I think we'll see this all happen in a moment. All the moves now pretty much forced, which helps Denis Lazovic with no time on his clock. All of his moves are very logical. And here he's coming for that white f-pawn. Still probably 99.9% accuracy at this rate, Jovanka. I need to check.
Yeah, both sides on 99.6% accuracy. And also, you know, when there's a position where there aren't too many pieces on the board, it has been worked out by the computers, and that's called a table base. And I can see the table base right here saying draw. I don't know why.
What, sorry?
I don't know why I put on that.
I don't have that again, Jovanka. What was
Can
it?
you please do that again?
I don't know what came over.
Draw.
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 Yes.
Offer you a draw.
There will be no draw offers in this one. Nodirbek will play it out till the end, but for Lazovic, he is getting closer to getting through and play against Alireza. Rook A1 on the board. His defense in this endgame, it almost feels flawless. I mean, the accuracy rate confirms it. It just, for a 16-year-old, I haven't seen chess like that. This is just mind-blowing play, not only in the tactical positions that we saw in game one, not only with the maneuvering, but flawless technique in a rook-pawn ending, and that's hard to achieve.
It is hard to achieve, and it does require practice. And as David said, you know, for sure, Denis is working on his chess many hours per day. I mean, what would you guess? I mean, would it be like 7 hours, 8 hours?
I'd say 14 hours a day.
I'd say 20.
Yeah, at least. He can sleep.
At least.
He can sleep for 1 hour a day, I'm sure. So yeah, he's dedicated to the cause.
I'd be working for 20 hours a day, but he's got only 22 seconds on the clock. David, what do you make of that? He is running out on time, but has he figured out the defensive structure, the fortress that he needs, where the clock will not be a factor?
I think he has, but this last move to me does show a bit of nerves. The black king didn't need to land on that square. Well, there was a checkmate threat just momentarily, just for 1 second there. Abdusattorov was threatening to bring his rook, but now, yeah, I was going to say, Lazovic really needs to go for this white f-pawn before it's too late. It was becoming a bit of a race here. He was running out of time, but as long as he can pick up this white f-pawn, he should be safe. And okay, now we'll see these pawns disappear, or will we? Will the black pawn advance? Ooh. This is a difficult decision, actually, with only 15 seconds left. The clock could play a factor. I think he chose well.
It's not difficult for Denis.
How long? He took 2 seconds to decide this move. G4. I would get flagged here.
Don't push the G-pawn. Yeah. If black pushes the G-pawn, he will get checkmated. The white rook will zoom across to H8. But okay, he breathes with his king. He enters. And look at how the black pawn and the white pawn actually here guard the black king from check. So even if white's pawn lands on the 7th rank, there's no way to get out the rook from in front of it with gain of tempo. Really classy stuff. And he's doing it with only a few seconds left.
Amazing. And also, let's point out, if white's rook was to attack that G-pawn, as you said, David, black's got this check, which is so important on the board before you go pawn grabbing.
Yeah, he's got it worked out. I think those last 2-3 moves were actually the most difficult. The rest should now be straightforward. Black's pawn is going to cause enough counterplay to secure the draw.
Yeah, great play. I mean, that was a really hard decision. I mean, the normal decision would be to exchange pawns off because you get closer to a draw. I'm not sure if that was a draw still, maybe. But this is an easier way to do it. And you can use, as black, your opponent's pawn to guard against checks as well here, which is very useful. So the black king can't be checked by the white rook because it has 2 pawns it can hide around. And that means the white rook is actually very passive. Whenever the white rook moves away, you take the pawn that the white rook is guarding. So this, as David says, seems... I think I'd hold this. I'd hold this one. I'm pretty sure about that.
And I saw a featured chat there about Nodirbek's performance in this tournament, and I would disagree with that. I think it was a difficult start with that match against Alireza, losing 3-0, dropping down to the elimination bracket. But he's stuck there, and he's taken down Fabiano Caruana, the world #2. He's had, he's fresh out of his performance in the World Rapid Team Championship. Throughout the Champions Chess Tour, he's been so consistent. And even this one, after a tough start, to make a comeback and to get to this stage, there are definitely positives in this.
Yeah, there are definitely a lot of positives. He was resourceful. Also, he had a very powerful game, powerful match against Elianov as well, who is a fantastic competitor. So definitely a lot of positives to take from this tournament. And of course, he'll be focusing on the big final, right? Yes. That is happening in Toronto. And there we do see the black pawn move all the way to the G2 square.
It's going to be king versus king in the end. The black rook's going to give itself up for the pawn. And there it is. Denis Lazovic takes down Nodirbek Abdusattorov, will go on to play against Alireza Firouzja for a spot into the grand final. The 16-year-old has done it and continues to leave a huge mark in the Champions Chess Tour. What a performance it has been by Denis Lazovic for Nodirbek Abdusattorov. It was a tough match and going down in 2 games. David, what was the clinching moment in this one?
The clinching moment was actually towards the end when, for the first time in this game, Denis Lazovic had to answer some questions. But of course, he came up with all of the right solutions. And it was here that Abdusattorov did finally test him. Pawn to f4 gave black only one move to hold the balance, only one move to draw. Trading pawns would have been a decisive mistake here due to threats of checkmate, for example, and due to the fact that finally the white king is free to come over and support its pawn walking forward. Instead, however, Denis Lazovic did calculate with just seconds left on his clock that pawn to g4 gives him sufficient counterplay, and this really classy move, king to g3, not falling for the checkmate here of rook to h8. Instead, he walked in front of his own pawn, gave himself some shelter there, the black king from checks, and the draw was inevitable.
With a 99.6% accuracy, both players fought to the best of their ability.
Yeah, it was an impressive game, perfect, flawless, but unfortunately, a draw.
Which meant that Denis does go through. He will be playing against Alireza Firouzja. Simon, your take on that match. You did pick Alireza to be the one to face Magnus in the grand final.
Yeah, it's going to be a really exciting match. And again, you've got a clash of styles there. I mean, you've got Denis, who is really hard to break down. I mean, how are you supposed to defeat him when he plays like that? He's so solid. But then you've got Alireza, who is a tactical genius. And if Alireza can get him in again, it's getting him in the right position. He needs to get him in some messy, complex position where Denis is forced to defend. And if he can do that, I think Alireza will be favourite.
When you're playing against a tactical genius like Alireza, for Denis, having this big result against Nodirbek, a huge confidence boost, David.
Huge confidence boost, not just today. I mean, yesterday, taking down Wesley So as well. He's on a roll now, Lazovic. And as a young player, we're talking about battle of generations, both young, of course, but as a young player, nothing gives you more belief than these wins, especially the way he did it today, where the accuracy levels were out of this world.
Yeah, definitely. And he just played so well. I mean, the accuracy levels, they're just astounding there. So, I mean, you can't beat someone if they play like that. How are you supposed to? It's like playing a computer, isn't it? Just so accurate. So,
yeah, I guess you just have to unbalance them. That's what Firouzja has to do. He has to think about Denis's strengths and then play in something that will make him uncomfortable. I mean, both sides will be playing that game. So it's going to be mind games in the losers final.
You got a big losers final coming up that we're super excited about. Denis Lazovic will take on Alireza Firouzja, and we will be back with that big matchup in just a few.
Spell Chess is coming to chess.com. Enchant your pieces with one of 2 spells, jump or freeze. Players start with 2 jump spells and 5 freeze spells, which recharge after 5 moves. You may cast your spell whenever you wish before making a regular chess move. Jump is a spell cast to 1 square, wherein if there is a piece on that square, other pieces can jump over the charmed piece. The freeze spell is cast over a 3x3 square area, and the pieces in this area are temporarily frozen in place. Combine your powers of chess and sorcery to defeat your opponent. Come see what Supercell and Chess.com have cooked up in our new variant, Spell Chess, dropping on September 1st.
Think you know who will take this year's Speed Chess Championship title? The SEC field includes reigning champ Hikaru Nakamura, World Cup victor Magnus Carlsen, JSCC winner Gukesh D, and the world champion himself, Ding Liren. It's a crazy, exciting field, and you can now submit your predictions for how this tournament will unfold for the chance to win Diamond membership. Use !fantasy in chat to learn how. And hurry, bracket submissions close when the first match of the SEC begins on September the 4th. Join the fray in the brand new Variants Community Series. We're looking to crown the best players in chess variants, starting off with King of the Hill. Beginning September the 7th, enter weekly arenas to prove your prowess in King of the Hill. The winner of each arena clinches a ticket to the championship at the end of this variant cycle. You must join the Variants Club to enter. Use !Variant Series in chat to learn more.
Chess.com's game review recently got a major update. Here are 4 key notes. At the end of each game review, you will now see a summary of the game from your coach, your performance rating for that game, and a quick grade for you and your opponent in the opening, middle game, and end game. We've added a new classification called Miss for when a move fails to take advantage of an opportunity, but it is otherwise a sound move. We've also changed the definition of blunder. Now a move will only be considered a blunder if it loses material or allows a checkmate. Coach will now draw arrows and highlight squares when you hover over or click on the highlighted words in the move explanation. This should make move explanations easier to follow. Finally, Coach's explanations will now reference specific pieces and threats in explanations, making move explanations much more intuitive. The new game review experience is available on chess.com right now.
Six events, 8 players. We are nearing the end of the 2023 season, and the fight to secure a spot at the finals is definitely on. Magnus Carlsen, Hikaru Nakamura, and Nodirbek Abdusattorov have already qualified through winning individual events. Plus, Wesley So and Fabiano Caruana punched their tickets with tour points. And now, only 3 spots remain. The finale will be played from December 9th to 16th in Toronto, Canada. Follow to see who will get a chance to fight for the 2023 Champions Chess Tour title.
Alireza Firouzja needs no introduction. This superstar burst onto the scene as a teenager, becoming world number 2 at 18 years old. However, since then, progress has been somewhat measured. He's been inconsistent, and his love for chess has at times been questioned. On the board though, Firouzja is dynamite. He's aggressive, he's dynamic, and there's a fear factor about Firouzja's play. None of the top players in the world can ever relax when Firouzja is sat opposite them. I have experienced the power of Alireza Firouzja many times myself. One of the most heartbreaking games of my career came in the Grand Swiss in 2021 when Firouzja beat me and went on to qualify for the candidates. In this position, I thought I was doing okay with black. However, Firouzja is an attacking maestro, and he shocked me by playing knight takes pawn, sacrificing a knight, and he had calculated everything perfectly. The idea is that when the knight is recaptured, suddenly this white light squared bishop is opened up to capture the black knight, and black has too many things hanging. This bishop is suddenly attacked in the center, the black king is open, and, for example, after a capture of bishops in the center, white can calmly recapture because the black knight is undefended. If you give Alireza Firouzja a tactical shot, he will find it and he will punish you, as I found out for myself.
It is Denis Lazovic against Alireza Firouzja in the losers final. They have they haven't played against each other. So this is a really big matchup for these two players, especially considering that spot to Toronto. Dennis, Alireza, Magnus already going through to Division 1 of the next event. And even though Nodirbek Abdusattorov did lose to Dennis Lazovic, he's already in to Toronto, but he will have to fight to play in Division 1 of the next event. He will have to play in the play-ins. What a match that was for Dennis Lazovic. The one that's coming up, Dennis versus Alireza. Is that a clash of styles?
That is certainly a clash of styles for me. Alireza is that unstoppable force. He likes dynamics, he likes tactics. We almost saw him take down Magnus Carlsen yesterday in what could have been a miniature. And for Dennis Lazovic, he's like that immovable object, right? So solid, so technical, so precise as well. I mean, I can't really wait to see what's going to happen. I think we're going to see some chaos in the middle.
I think chaos definitely favour Alireza. I mean, if we can get some chaos on the board, then it will go to the more chaotic player. So I think it really depends on the openings and what kind of positions they get. If it's going to be a safe kind of positional kind of grind, then I think Dennis might well be favourite actually. But if it goes to some crazy tactics with Alireza able to sacrifice, then I think he's gonna come through this one. But I don't know, it's a big reward as well, David. I mean, the winner's going to play Magnus Carlsen, right? So massive reward.
Huge stakes. I think you're right, Simon. It might just come down to the opening, who gets their type of position. And I just have a feeling, we've talked in the past about matches being so close to call, Armageddon being likely. I have a feeling this is going to be a blowout in one direction or the other. I'm not sure who's going to be crushing who, but either way, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
We'll find out who crushes who. Right now, it is your chance to crush our trivia of the day. Let's bring up our questions. You guys need to bring out your phones to answer this one. And the question is, who was the oldest world champion in chess history? That is, who was the oldest world champion in chess history? We've got Simon and David both shaking their head in the studio. Let's find out what actually happened when they tried to answer this one.
Okay, let me just have a think. All right, I'm going to go for this.
I think it's Magnus Carlsen.
Yeah.
He's pretty old.
Yeah, go on then, put that down. Sorry. I saw your answer. It's all right. Look at him trying to hide it.
Oh,
I think I got this one as well. I know this one.
That was a fun one. We will reveal the answer and the winner later in the show. We're giving away a Clash Chess mystery box. One of you can win a Clash Chess mystery box. You've got to go on Twitter, answer the question using the hashtag ChessChamp. Submit your answer and you could win a Clash Chess mystery box. Right now, the two big youngsters are fighting to win a spot against Magnus Carlsen in the grand final. It is Dennis Lazovic, the 16-year-old phenom, against Alireza Firouzja. The two players are getting ready to make their first moves. Magnus Carlsen wanted a rematch. He wanted a final against Alireza. David, what are the chances of him getting that?
50-50. I genuinely believe this could go either way right now. Magnus said he would love to play Firouzja because it's going to be fun, dynamic, attacking, aggressive chess, guaranteed no matter what. And it would be a very different type of final if Dennis Lazovic was there, equally close, of course. But this one, we were talking in the break, Simon, we were thinking about openings and the Italian game. It's no surprise. Earlier, we showed in the video that Firouzja beat me with the sacrifice. That came in the Italian game. He's maybe the world's foremost expert in this opening. He's happy to freestyle quite often just because he knows the plans, knows the ideas, concepts so well. But Dennis Lazovic says, OK, we're not going to go into a slower maneuvering game yet. He's going direct. He's trying to solve Black's opening problems with this pawn break. And this is very well-known stuff. This position has been seen. It's become very popular over the last 10 years. But how will Firouzja react? He needs to start attacking Black's central pawn. Black is doing very well in space here, but it's all about timing. And Dennis Lazovic, meanwhile, rubbing his eyes, is that? I don't think he's tired. I think he's actually full of energy, maybe just trying to remember some opening theory. What do we make of this start to the game?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a key game because with the white pieces, Alireza is very dangerous, as we saw against Magnus Carlsen yesterday. Even though he lost that game, he got a winning position. And you point out, David, he's probably the world's leading expert in this particular opening. So this is his chance, really. I think with Black against someone like Dennis, it's going to be Dennis trying to grind away with a small advantage. So I think you know, White needs to win this game to win the match. That would be, you know, or avoid an Armageddon. And Black, though, developing his pieces quite harmoniously, a standard theoretical position, this a normal move, gaining some space on the queen side, giving the light square bishop, the white light square bishop, somewhere it can go. So this is all common stuff. I think I mean, it does come down to the centre, doesn't it? Here is Black's centre strong or is it weak here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was thinking about Alireza's last move, you know, lifting up the A pawn. And I was wondering whether it's going to be a space grab there on the left side, so maybe even back it up with B2, B4. But yeah.
Yeah, there's so many nuances here. There's so many differences depending on where Black's A pawn is. He's just put it up one square to A6. If it was on A5, the tactics work out so differently. If Black didn't touch his pawn, it's a very different type of position. If there's an inclusion of the move H3, White's H pawn kicking that light squared bishop, and the Black bishop sitting on H5, it can be very different there as well. I've studied this position too many times, too many hours in my life, and I still don't know the answer. But that means maybe neither do these players. And Firouzja, I've seen him have this type of position before with maybe a few different kind of move order, different kind of nuances. But
David, did you study this from the white side or the black side?
Actually, I have bad memories, Simon. I nearly became World Junior Champion, World Under-20 Champion. I just needed a draw with white, or at least it turns out with the other. Thank you. I just needed a draw with white, and I could have forced one, but I thought I needed to win. I hadn't calculated the tie breaks correctly, and I went all in, and I lost. So that's my experience from the white side. With the black side, I was actually planning to play this variation against Firouzja, but he just had some great results. I know he's beaten Sasi Kiran and some other very strong players in this exact line. So. Yeah, he's really fighting fire with fire here, Lazovic, going into his opponent's kind of forte at the early stages. A5, clamping down, stopping Black from going for the maneuver, knight back to B6. That's kind of the main kind of defense for Black in terms of simplifying the position. Oof. I'm getting those traumatic memories. Flashbacks. change the topic, guys, please.
Oh, dear.
How are you with the last round, Simon?
How am I with last rounds? Yeah. I don't know, about 50-50. I've got some terrible memories as well. I mean, I was playing for the EU Championships one year, and I was playing Danny Gormali and with the black pieces, and I needed to win the European Union Championships, and or at least come first equal. And I got smashed in 18 moves, and it was horrendous feeling. And I also had to drive that night, so I couldn't even have a beer. So that was very, very painful. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I don't mind the stress. I quite enjoy it. You know, I think you have to, as a chess player, enjoy those big moments. Otherwise, you're in the wrong game.
Especially when there's a lot on the line, and it usually is the case in those last rounds. It's either about making a nom or a championship game, and it always gets so tricky. But I think it comes with the territory, and the best players in the world, the best comes out in them. And David, while you're saying that, you know, you have some bad memories in this position with white, I've got some great memories with black in this position.
Thanks, Tanya.
Sorry for bringing that up again, but I quite like this opening of going D5, the central pawn break that we saw with black against the Italian. I played it a couple of times. And like you said, that one resource that black has is coming with that knight back, which has been stopped. The other plan that I really like for black in this position is to sidestep with your king to H8, and just start pushing that F pawn. Now, white can go G4, attack that bishop on H5, and try and win the E5 pawn. But it usually gives black enough compensation because of the overexpanded king side. You simply defend that knight on D5. The queen from D8 can come into play from F6, from H4, and it's more than enough compensation. So, yeah, I kind of like these openings from black.
Yeah, I mean, I love the plan, and even myself, a certified pawn grabber, would not grab that pawn in the middle of the board with that white king way too loose. Yeah, which kind of begs the question, if black goes for that very optimistic approach of just moving the king and perhaps going for F7, F5, how is Alireza going to handle such activity?
Big question. Not obvious to me. That's why, I mean, I stopped playing this as white pretty much after that traumatic experience.
He's gone for it. It is a very thematic plan. I like this move, King H8, and I'm expecting black to try to get the initiative here. And David, white would want to play queen to b3, attacking that knight on b7, but the problem is that black can then trade the bishop and the knight once again, creating a bad king side for white.
Yeah, let's not do that.
No.
The white position.
Do not try this at home.
No.
I really don't like the look of this opening for white. I mean, like, I know it's fine, but I mean, black's got all the space, black's got active pieces, and black's attacking. Why do people play this? David, why do people play this?
Just stop it, guys.
Sorry, David.
There you go. Why did you play this rubbish? You know, play some proper openings.
I know. Firouzja's going to win now and teach us all how to play it.
Yeah.
But I did notice this game was back in 2008 when I was younger, different generation. But I did notice it was an Indian speciality, and this move on the board now, I noticed, I mean, that was against Abhijit Gupta, this game, and all the Indian players were playing it, and at the time I was like, okay, it can't work. It looks like black's pawn should just be dropping, but computers weren't that strong. I wasn't well prepared. I mean, I guess one idea here would be the move d4. Tanya, you're the expert here, and then a move like knight b3. This looks to me as if at least it asks some questions, but yeah, I agree with Simon. It looks a bit scary with this pin involved, and black's super active.
I actually trained with Abhijit.
Oh.
So that's where I had some idea of how to play these positions. And yes, d4, as you're pointing out. Also, the last move, knight d2, it does free up the queen for the other plans that we were looking at. But also watch out for that black knight jumping onto f4. Now, queen to b3 would not only hit the knight on d5, not only hit the knight on b7, but also free up the knight from f3 to start targeting the e5 pawn. But you know, Jovanka, pawn grabbing, leaving all your pieces on the other side of the board does leave the king in extreme danger. So you have to be very careful about getting greedy in these positions.
Yeah. No, I believe it. Yeah. Tanya, you don't need to tell me twice. Because if there's something worse than losing pawns, I also don't like my king to be attacked.
Yeah.
And there aren't too many players who can actually play with an open, vulnerable king.
Daniel Dubov comes to mind.
They do it if they need to. I mean, I guess they start running with their king or they hide their king, but nobody likes getting attacked, right? Even players we talk about as being slow, strategic, who kind of very good at defending, I think they only defend because they have to, not necessarily because they want to, or they defend because they've already won material or got kind of long-term strategic advantages. Yeah, it's surprising to me that Firouzja is thinking so long. I mean, he's had this opening, this line with d5 multiple times before. It's a bit strange that he's freestyling here.
There's just one line that I want to highlight with the dangers that we've been talking about, because I really like this position for black. David, I think your idea of d4 is what white needs to do, but let's say you did go for queen to b3. Trying to, again, be a pawn grabber. Black, I think, can jump in with the knight to f4. And if you grab that central pawn, it leaves the g5 square for the black queen to come in. And I think this could be very close to a big disaster. You can go directly, as you're pointing out, and I see that works really well because g2, and there's just no way to even defend the mate. I'd have to go bishop d5, but it's starting to look really weak. Knight h3 coming in, f2 falling apart. This is game over.
It's in your words, boom, boom, bang.
This would be boom, boom, bang. Simon, don't Simon, let's just move on.
Boom, boom, yeah. Oh, you can see my... Yeah, you got me there. Just right a chance. Boom, boom, bang. Boom, boom, bang. Is that what goes through your mind when you're playing these moves at the board? Do you actually think that? Do you go boom, boom, bang? Like, you know, or do you say it very quietly?
Yeah, moving on.
Okay, moving on.
But yep. I do think if my opponent did play something like queen b3, knight e5, and I get all my pieces in, and then it might cross my mind.
Would you do a little dance as well?
On the inside.
Boom, boom, bang.
Do you know, on that subject of having sayings, maybe I shouldn't tell.
You should.
But anyway,
totally tell.
Okay,
100% tell.
Between us all, please keep it a secret.
Just the four of us. Nobody will ever know your rank.
Super aggressive against me in the opening, and they're lower rated than me, and I feel that they're weaker than me. I'm like, come and have a go. You think you're hard enough?
Yeah.
I'm ready.
like an English football hooligan.
Exactly.
So
Keep that quiet, okay?
Yeah, no one will know that. You've also been to a lot of English football matches. Coming out of you're hard enough.
Bring it on, mate.
Yeah. All right, geezer.
Yeah, okay.
But when you guys are playing a game, over the board especially, do you feel like you've got this song running in your head?
Too many
Oh
times.
my gosh.
It's so
I'm not alone.
annoying.
Good to know.
It's so annoying.
But you know, even Vishy Anand was talking about what to do with this, and he had a really rational response. He just said, actually, the brain is so big and so powerful that it can deal with like the 10% that is having a party. And when I thought about it like that, I thought, well, actually, I'm going to try that one next time and not get so irritated.
Yeah, just accept it. Well, right now on the board, it looks like Denis Lazovic is having a bit of a party. F5 on the board. A big decision for Alireza. He's gone into a think, which means he's feeling a little uncomfortable. David, do you want to do a quick deep dive on what happens with D4? Because it feels like quite a critical moment here for White.
Yeah, 5-minute think. Firouzja needs something. He's basically said, come and have a go if you think you're hard enough. Come at me and look at these black pawns. If black gets another chance to kind of blow open the position, or as Tanya was mentioning, bring in the knight, go for an attack against the white king, then we could see this game over and not in white's favour very, very quickly. So striking out in the centre makes a lot of sense, just trying to break down this strong pawn duo. If black takes, then I mentioned this move, knight to b3. This would at least make sense of the fact that white's knight was kind of blocking up the other pieces. Now you do gain a bit of time hitting this bishop, hitting the pawn. I'm not sure whether you can sacrifice anything here. I mean, the first move that comes to my mind is simply just moving this bishop, getting it out the way, and the resulting position after knight takes, let's say, for example, a position like this. Okay, he's played the move d4, so we're heading in this direction. I think it's just evaluating something like this that cost Firouzja so much time. The downside for white here is that you have this pawn in the center on d4, isolated pawn. The downside as well, you're still stuck in this pin. It's not easy to break, but on the upside, at least this bishop is blocked temporarily. The white queen is still free to kind of put pressure on this knight, something similar that we saw earlier. And the kind of biggest plus here is that you won't get checkmated. I think that's the number one benefit to this whole variation and what Firouzja has likely settled on. So if we go back to the game position, it is here, and I'm expecting the move knight b3. And it's up to Denis to see whether he can kind of go down that line and find something there for black, or whether he has alternatives along the way.
Great call there, David. D4 on the board. And Alireza slows down, and he has made a move. It's knight b3. He goes for it. There was probably no other choice. You can't really grab back because of the pin, so you need to put pressure on black's bishop and pawn. We might be seeing the position that you've been talking about.
Yeah, well, at least something very similar. The bishop does drop back, the most natural move on the board, of course. And now I'm expecting him to take back with the knight just because I wanted to free that square for the white queen, as we've been highlighting. I guess you could take with the pawn as well, matter of taste. But it feels like the more pieces off the board, the safer it is for white. And at this point, with kind of a 4-minute time deficit, it feels like Firouzja needs to play it safe. Not in his nature, but that would be my instinct, at least here.
Yeah.
We got predictions early on, right? David said it's a 50-50 match. Very diplomatic answer there. Simon picked Alireza as the one who will make his comeback after his loss against Magnus yesterday. How do you assess this matchup, Jovanka?
Yeah, I'm actually in Simon's court. I think Alireza Firouzja, he's so talented, so dynamic that I think he will find a way to confuse the young Denis. But yeah, it's going to be close.
Yeah.
Judging by the way that Denis has been playing so quickly, so confidently, Firouzja will have his work cut out for him.
Alireza would be a favorite on paper, right? In this matchup. But just what we witnessed in the match against Nodirbek, and sort of, it almost felt as if Denis just made that match look easy. The first game, a strategic masterpiece, perfect execution of tactics, and the second game, defending that rook-pawn ending to perfection. I would have said Alireza at the start of the day, but I'm shifting. I feel, David, not even 50. I think that Denis Lazovic has a real shot of going all the way through and making it to the grand final against Magnus in his first ever Champions Chess Tour.
Yeah, it's looking very, very possible at this point. And I mean, I talked about confidence belief earlier. The speed with which he's playing in such a crazy, complicated position, which isn't necessarily his style, as we've been mentioning, especially against someone like Firouzja, who's one of the world's best players when, well, at the best of times, but also especially when he has white. Yeah, it's impressive stuff. And the longer Firouzja thinks, the more Denis is going to get excited about his chances.
Under 5 minutes now.
Yeah, this is the type of kind of time usage that I'm used to. But for Firouzja, it's rare.
What's that all about then?
Oof, lack of confidence, maybe.
Hang on a minute.
Perfectionism. Stop it, Simon. Stop it.
Okay.
Make me cry. Okay. Let's focus. And yeah, the line that we showed earlier, most likely appearing on the board. I guess you could take this knight with black's dark squared bishop as well if you think that bishop doesn't have too much long-term potential. Either way, we will see a capture in the center, and white will have this IQP, the isolated queen's pawn. And who would we prefer here?
Yeah, I think that's a great question because an isolated queen's pawn, it usually has these dynamics and pros and cons for both sides. This position, looking at the way the opening has gone, Simon, you go with it. What would you pick? Would you rather be white or black here?
I think over the next 4 moves, it'll be much easier to make a decision because we're probably going to see an exchange on d4. And had black not played f5, I think I would have said black, which is unlike me. I'm just feeling this f5 move. It was a really good time for white to play d4 because there's a lot of sort of weakened squares that black has created by pushing that pawn. And we see exactly the line that David pointed out. And I'm thinking queen b3 is starting to be quite an annoying threat. And then if you can play knight e5 at the right moment. So it's kind of a key moment here. I think if white is able to play like queen b3, white's going to be better here. So Dennis has to keep playing very good moves there, I feel, after Alireza's very, very clever opening play. I mean, even something like rook a3 is the kind of typical move where he's playing very quickly, so he's obviously not scared at all. But I think I would pick white slightly, but black's got positives as well. Black's knight in the center of the board, beautiful piece, can never be kicked away by a pawn. The pin, black's light square bishop pinning the knight to the queen. And with that last move, the dark square bishop can come to another diagonal as well. So
nice.
It's probably in the balance, but I don't know. I'd probably go white. What about you guys there? White or black?
I was umming and ahhing about this because I too like the fact that the white knight can one day arrive on the e5 square. I can see a lot of pressure building on this knight on d5. But on the other hand, it's actually really difficult to unravel and not give up material, not give up the d4 pawn. And I think that is swaying me to slightly prefer black.
We have a bet brewing, I feel.
Your turn, David.
Oh, neutral, 50-50. It's going to be a draw, guys.
David, 50-50s, and I'm Team Ivanka on this.
Team black.
Yes.
Loyal to your opening.
So
it's the opening as well. I do like as I said, I do like these positions with black. And I completely agree that move f5, it's a double-edged sword where you do tend to create all these weaknesses on the e6 or the e5 square. But the dynamics in the position, the fight against the d4 pawn with that bishop on a7 lined up against it, the knight on d5 was super nice piece. All the points that you pointed out. For me, if I had to choose, I would choose black. I think Dennis has got reasons to be happy with the opening outcome.
4.5 extra minutes as well. That
helps.
Has to count for something, right? And if he can keep this pace, Dennis, if you can maybe just move the black queen, get the black rook in the corner into the game, just keep asking questions of Firouzja. We did see a slight shake of the head as well from Alireza there. It definitely feels like he's not enjoying this game too much. I think he would love to get out of this one, actually, Firouzja, just survive and get out of this one intact at this point. Just 3 minutes 46 is not much at all. Still, the key moment's still kind of ahead.
Yeah, and that last retreating bishop move, as you said, Ivanka, you call this, those moves that you're saying happy moves? Mm-hmm. This is not one of them. When you have to bring your bishop back to e2 so that you can unpin and make sure that black doesn't capture on f3 and you don't end up losing that d4 pawn because now you can recapture with bishop. And I see that you're surprised with this choice.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that. I thought personally that black would be looking at ways to kind of restrict the movement of the dark square bishop, but I thought it was really committal just to make their trade, release the tension in the position. But there's a concrete idea behind it. He just wants to go for the d4 pawn. And, it's modern day chess.
Yeah,
it makes perfect sense, actually.
And the white knight had a very dangerous idea and a very big square in the center of the board. And sometimes you have to play these unconventional moves, I guess, like capturing the knight here. it's unconventional. Bishop's supposed to be better than knights, but you've got to get rid of your opponent's best pieces. And it's, I mean, I'm wondering here, though. I mean, if white can ever get his dart squared bishop to e5, I'd be laughing. But
Not happening, Simon.
not easily. Not easily. I mean, no, because you've always got bishop b8, so I am daydreaming. I'm very good at that. And the rook comes out to a4. Still in the balance here. I mean, black's knight good. Not much has changed, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, normally I would be very biased towards the bishop pair, but I will make an exception here. I'll just say that the black knight is at least as strong as those bishops. I'm expecting to move rook to d8. And yeah, this pawn is not going to go away anytime soon as a weakness for white. Meanwhile, the black knight might start to jump a bit later. Very much in the balance. I'm loving this maneuver that you mentioned earlier, Simon, just the bishop dropping back, even if need be. This is quite a nice diagonal to sit on as well.
That's a really good point you make about the rook coming onto the center, because, Simon, your idea was in the air. White could have captured on d5, forcing black to recapture with the pawn, and that bishop does find its way to e5. So rook d8 really nicely timed, so that now if you capture, you can put pressure along the d line. So he decides to develop the queen. It is going to be a big fight. Meanwhile, we are getting updates of the fights in Division 2. Big breaking news. Jan Nepomniachtchi has defeated Artemiev 2.5 to half. So a dominating performance there by Jan, former World Championship challenger twice. And he does advance to the grand final. If he wins it, he makes it to Division 1 of the next Champions Chess Tour event. Also picks up 50 tour points. It's shaping up really nicely. We saw that Wesley lost yesterday, but he's into the finals in Toronto with the tour points. The lineup that we have for that. So there's Magnus Carlsen, Fabiano Caruana, Hikaru Nakamura, Nodirbek Abdusattorov, and Wesley So. That is a stacked field.
I mean, it's like some of the best players in the world and then some of the best up-and-coming players as well. So anything can happen. And I'm kind of curious to see whether this young man will also find a spot in Toronto.
Which one? They're both pretty young.
Yeah. Okay,
Younger.
Goodness me.
Yeah, I mean,
everyone is young these days. So yeah,
wow.
Both these young men.
I feel that way far too often. So, yeah, I mean...
I loved it earlier, Tanya. You were like, oh, Battle of the Generations, these youngsters, and you were talking about Bortnik, and he's like 27, I think, or 26, 27.
Yeah.
So it's, these days, everyone's young.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's definitely a young person's game.
Maybe that's telling us something. You know?
Yeah, stop, David. We'll all need that tissue otherwise if we don't stop with that. Meanwhile, a pawn has been picked up in the center of the board. Is white planning to capture the queen side pawn on b7? What's going on with all these trades?
He answers the question. He does take that pawn, but now the white queen's offside. Are there
Very
consequences?
interesting. Yeah, I mean, this is suddenly heating up, David, isn't it? I mean, and you can see this move immediately. He's not even thinking about playing what are probably great moves there. I mean, he's threatening to take on f2, winning the game immediately. You cannot play g3 here. Maybe worth pointing out. You've also got a threat of bishop f2, winning the rook. There's a lot of threats that Alireza has to deal with here. How does he deal with them? I'll leave that to David, that question.
Good answer.
You know, it's not simple to deal with all these threats.
I think you need to sacrifice simply. You cannot defend this pawn, as you mentioned, Simon, because, for example, if you slide your rook over to defend, you just take it anyway. Take this pawn and, whoops, loose pieces drop off. This rook in the corner is hanging, and this is a decisive material advantage. And if you're going to lose material anyway, it's slightly surprising that Firouzja is even thinking. I think he just has to capture this bishop simply, and he has to say, OK, I'm going to take your pawn. I'm not sure which one. Most likely the A pawn, just to create a passed pawn of your own. And you do have the compensation of two bishops. Right now, you're down the exchange, rook for minor piece, but you do have this very strong pawn on A5. And this is the game position now. We did follow that line. Some chances, but surely black, in such an open position with the rooks, must be in charge.
Do you think Alireza underestimated queen h4?
I don't think he had much choice, really. I mean, it seems like the game is, again, I mean, I've gone quite natural progression. I expect their accuracy level to be really high here, even white's accuracy level. And I think he's like, OK, I can't sit here passive. I'm going to go and grab a pawn. I expect he probably saw this exchange sacrifice. I mean, it's the kind of thing he sees immediately. And he's also, you know, he wants to win this game, even if the opening hasn't gone his way. I still think he's like, right, I'm gonna complicate it to get an exciting battle. And now the queens could be coming off as well.
Yeah, interesting. And who would this favour? On paper, it should be black, being material ahead. But the bishop's well placed, and white will have a very, very far advanced pawn if the queens are traded on his terms.
But David, don't you just end up losing that far advanced pawn almost immediately if black was to trade and put pressure on it with the rook?
Yeah, some tactics. Maybe we have to investigate, because I think this is what Denis wants to do. He wants to get the queens off, and it would suit his style as well. We've seen him be a bit of an endgame maestro. You mentioned going after this pawn. How does white keep this alive?
Because bishop e3, there's knight c2.
Good question, yeah. Very good question. You want to defend this pawn, but suddenly a double attack. Next move, the bishop is eliminated, and finally this pawn will drop. This would be hopeless if you lose the bishop pair as well as the b-pawn. So maybe you have to go active. I'm wondering if there are any bishop kind of in ideas. Have to do some calculation here. I'm wondering whether you kind of get in and somehow put the bishop on the long diagonal to try and target the black king. It's not dead, but certainly looks good for black.
Why is the eval bar still level? Can someone explain that to me?
I'm thinking it might be David's idea of putting that rook all the way to the 7th.
Let's say I take this pawn.
Yeah, and then now you attack the rook.
That's nice, hitting the rook, and if I move it, you come
And now. But I only saw it because you pointed out this idea.
Yeah, I think you have to find the right move order. I think you found the right one there, Jovanka. And suddenly counterplay. If the black knight were back anywhere else, this might just be winning on the spot. But unfortunately for Lazovic, not quite working out. So this is why he's paused. Suddenly the clock times, they're almost leveling out. If he doesn't trade the queens, maybe he can try and do it on his own terms here. Can he jump in with his knight? What else is he contemplating?
And now under 3 minutes, Alireza under 2 minutes. And in this game, clock will definitely be a factor because it's still very complicated, the position. Is there a way for black to actually keep queens on the board and not give white that activity with the targets on g7? If you wanted to keep queens on the board, where do you move?
Not much choice. I guess you have to defend the black knight as well. So you can step over one square maybe to c4. You can go back to d6 with the black queen. But yeah, retreating feels kind of goes against instinct at least, and sidestepping here as well feels like you're kind of hanging in midair.
You could also block the trade by advancing the c-pawn, but that comes at the big consequence because the a-pawn, of course, it has a free road all the way to the a8 square, which is now protected by the bishop.
Yeah, and bishop becomes a monster.
Maybe you could try knight c2 here as well. There's another way to exchange queens. I mean, try to get the knight centralized, try to get rid of one of those bishops with the knight, and pick up a pawn. So he might be thinking about that. Tap the rook with the knight, and this would be a different exchange of queens, I assume.
It's crazy. If we were playing this position, would we think that it was equal? I mean, if I were black, even if I were white, I would think surely it's advantage for the black side right now.
Yeah. I would trade and pick up that b pawn because I don't want that a pawn to be alive on the board. It's just so scary with the two bishops, and yeah, we're getting moves in. I feel this is the most human approach in this position.
Yeah, definitely. And the two bishops are going to have to work their magic here as well. I mean, that last line you showed was very interesting, and we might see this now. I think black has. I mean, white has to play this, and he has, of course, found this move. And I mean, rook g8 is going to defend all that, and we'll come to the position very soon. And I'm a bit concerned about Denis's room. He needs to put some lights on there, doesn't he?
It's getting super dark.
Really dark.
I must say, he did win yesterday that crazy Armageddon just in such a dark room.
Yeah.
His chances aren't dark in this position, but yeah, playing without any light can be draining.
I mean, my initial thought here was bishop h5, but you've got to find a good move as white here, I think. Maybe if black can exchange a pair of rooks off, black should be winning this, right? Yeah. So that's the big problem. But
the big problem is you're never going to do that.
Never going to do that, no.
And we're going to see why.
Maybe it's time to move the h-pawn. I mean, it's actually, the more I look at this, which side would you take now? I mean, I'm kind of thinking, quite like white, actually.
This move I didn't expect, because I was actually thinking that the light square bishop would go to the h5 square and attack.
Yeah, that was a nice line, but this does have a direct threat of f5. And David, it also sets up a trap if black does try to achieve that rook trade. You've got to show what happens after rook f8.
Yeah, be careful where you place your pieces and always look for checks and captures first in every position, because it looks natural you're offering a trade of rooks, but suddenly bishop takes pawn would be a nasty check, deflecting this black rook from g8, no longer defending its fellow rook there, and this would lose the material and you'd end up 2 clear pawns down. So big trap on the board. Dennis won't fall for it. He hasn't played it yet, at least rook to f8. What are we expecting instead?
Rook b5, is that a move?
Yeah, rook b5 would defend this pawn across the board. He drops his knight back, so giving away another pawn. Suddenly, it won't be a huge material deficit for white, and you still have the powerful bishops. Black's rook, king, really, really passive here. Maybe he's banking on the fact that he can try and bully white into a rook trade. I'm not sure he can, though, after taking this pawn. I was thinking maybe you offer this trade, and the white rook, though, still has access to some key squares. It feels like this is definitely momentum turning. I think you called it, Simon.
I quite like, I mean, I definitely prefer to be white here. The 2 bishops are actually really strong. You got the idea of pushing your h-pawn up the board at the right moment, and you should be able to bail out to draws now as well as white, I feel, by capturing the knight at the right time. So it's a bit easier for white to play. And the time situation, this is key now. They're both very short time. Look at Dennis's time. I know he's a really quick player, but he's getting down to 25 seconds. So it's the clock is going to be very, very important now.
A direct threat on g7, you've got to defend that. And then the big question, does white pick up that second pawn as well? You said you'd like to be white. Jovanka, do you agree that you'd also pick white here? You're shaking your head.
Not yet.
And like the extra exchange.
And there we do see Firouzja pick up the second pawn. But I mean, this position, there's still a lot to play for, but I feel like objectively it is a draw.
Yeah.
The bishop isn't anchored as well.
Yeah, it should be a draw now. Even if one set of rooks disappears, we were talking earlier that would favour black, but now I think a set of rook trades would secure the draw.
We do have a result.
Oh, wow. OK, the players do agree to a draw. Alireza did offer, and it's accepted by Lazovic.
G3, and I think that was the moment. The first game has ended. Quite a fight, a very topsy-turvy game there, but and Alireza Firouzja taking his chances, but Denis Lazovic was up to the task, and this one ends in a draw. While there is little light in his room, the match is quite bright, and the fight does continue. That's a lot of rhyming. David, you have to take us through what happened and where was the critical moment?
Yeah, another really accurate game. Both players with high precision levels here. And I just want to highlight one moment where Alireza, we thought he was in trouble. He's material down, but he found a really clever way to force a level position. He offered the trade of queens, counterintuitive when you're down on material, but it turned out that just dynamically, move by move, he is in time here. If black is able to take this pawn, trade off a set of rooks, it's game over. But he was able to get active, not worrying about that pawn, got his bishop into the game, and he tied down the black rook to this pawn's defense. The last clincher of the draw, I feel, was this move. He was able to pick up a pawn and another pawn and guide the game to safety.
Very precise play there by Denis Lazovic being in this endgame, a difficult endgame. And now we've got a draw in this one, which means we've got a final rapid game coming up. If that ends in a draw as well, we will have a tie break. It is a close fight, and we will be back with their final rapid games. Don't go anywhere.
It doesn't look like much, but neither would a Sicilian defense to the untrained eye. This is a performance enhancer. You don't see it? How about now? Manage your air quality, sharpen your performance, change the game with Air Things.
Minute 10 seconds. Every second counts. Hikaru Nakamura is surviving.
We're rook a8. Whoa! He blundered his queen. He's got 40 more seconds. He needs to burn.
Rookie's losing.
Oh my God, he's gonna flag. No!
He flagged! He flagged! He flagged!
Oh my God! He made him! Oh my God!
Strong!
quickly. Oh! Oh my gosh!
So 16-year-old Denis Lazovic continues his impressive run. Bodana Sivanandan, half his age. 8-year-old is making a splash all across the world with her performance. And we continue with her challenge against the 79-year-old Peter Lee. Take a look at what happened when they played a game of chess.
On a school day, I would probably take an hour in the morning for chess, and then I would come back from school at around 4, and then I think I would do chess again up till like 8, 9 stuff, and then I would go to bed.
Typical day for me. Get up, have breakfast, go out, stagger out with my broken leg to the paper shop to get the papers, meet up with people for lunch or dinner, and in the evening I often play bridge matches.
Peter, it's check.
Oh, it's check. Oh, sorry. I didn't hear you say anything. Yeah, thanks. I thought Bodana played extremely well, very, very solidly. Didn't make mistakes and made good positional moves all the time. The last time I was wiped out by a woman was by Nodirbek Abdusattorov in 1966. She beat me.
She beat you.
Two wins and one draw.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm retiring.
Such a cool performance there by the 8-year-old Bodana Sivanandan. And as a chess player, I have to say it is extra painful to lose to a young kid.
It is. We've all been there, and we'll all be there again. But she is really something special. Peter's a very, very strong player, former British champion, and yeah, by just that result alone shows how talented she is.
Yeah, I mean, really, really talented player, and you could see he was a bit upset there at the end there, wasn't he? Last time I lost to it was 1966. Well, that was great. And it was a really strong women player as well, female player that he lost to there.
I'm a world champion. Like legend, Nodirbek Abdusattorov.
Yeah.
But I must admit, I really like that moment where she goes, it's check. Peter, it's check. Oh, how cute. But I have to also echo both David and Simon when I say that she's incredible, and hopefully she will be the start of a very promising future for English girls.
It's going to be so exciting to see her future unfold. Bodana Sivanandan right now doing all the right things. She's already the world underage champion and took the 2nd place in the Blitz British Women's Championship. Some fantastic performances coming up, a name to watch out for. And one big influence in Bodana's game has been the legendary British Grandmaster, a former world number 4 Grandmaster, Jonathan Spielman. And we had a chat with him on how chess has evolved over generations.
It's a study I made recently. Blah, 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 blah. It's a study, yeah. So this check takes, yeah. I learnt chess at 6. My cousin taught me. And I was very, very slow compared to what the kids are now. I mean, at the age of 8, I was certainly much weaker than Bodana is now. And I wasn't an IM until I was 21, or a Grandmaster till I was 24. So completely different world. Because, you know, if you're not a Grandmaster at the age of 20 now, you're nobody, are you? That Oh, Jobtvaart. Sorry. Shit, no, it's all right. I mean, look, first, information comes at a ridiculous speed now. You know, when I was a child, okay, Informatica came out, I think, maybe once a year, then twice a year, then later 3 times a year. So somebody like Ligorich could wander around Europe and playing with the same strong guys, but when he played the local guys, he could play the same novelty 2 or 3 times against different people before it got published. Sort of my proudest thing, really. It's made out of aircraft glass, I think. And now, if you play a novelty in a serious tournament, then within about half an hour, somebody will have refuted it or neutralized it or done something with them with the help of the engines. So, you know, it's a completely different world. I think the main difference is you lose stamina when you get older. You're probably more ambitious when you're younger. For me, I think I'm not much slower than when I was young. I'm probably a bit more inaccurate now. I don't have the stamina, so I've decided that I don't often try to play the best move. Now, I think maybe the very best players in the world are actually able to play the best move quite a lot of the time.
Grandmaster Jonathan Spielman there on how much younger chess has become over time. The only thing I disagree with over there is Grandmaster at 20, no. Unless you're a Grandmaster, by the time you're 14 already, you've got to restart considering your career in chess already.
It's strange, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, I became a Grandmaster at the really old age of 28, you know, which is like way too old. It's another lifetime. But Jonathan Spielman, one of my favourite players of all time, he's a legend of British chess. He was, I think, ranked number 3 or 4 in the world at one point. He was semi-finalist in the Candidates World Championships, but his style of play is what I love. He was unconventional, really wacky stuff.
Oh, the romantic chess.
Romantic, complicated, really, really beautiful ideas. So he's a bit of a hero there.
Yeah. And we see that style in your games as well, Simon, being inspired by the great Jonathan Spielman's messy, aggressive chess. And as he was world number 4 in 1989, let's take a look at how much chess has changed. And these are the top 10 and we see there, world number 5, some really big names. Gary at the top, he was 25. The ratings as well, 27.75. Right now, we've got Magnus Carlsen over 28.40. And let's take a look at the world top 10 as it is in 2023. And look at that, 28.39 at the top, the age that we see as well. What stands out to you in these two lists, David?
Well, firstly, the fact that we've been talking about chess being a young person's game, but if we look at the top 10 now, there's only one teenager, Gukesh. We talk about Firouzja, he's 20 now, but the rest are all pretty much around or above the age of 30. So still the experience playing a key role in classical chess, at least. And of course, the ratings, due to inflation, they are very, very high. The world top 10 back in 89 as well. There was just one teenager, the rest also in their 30s, maybe slightly older on average, but in general, experience still holding strong.
Still holding strong, and especially in that world number 9, Viswanathan Anand.
I noticed that as well, right? Vishy, 50 plus, and still world's top 10, still playing amazing, inspirational stuff.
Absolutely, and he is the 5-time world champion. And right now, it is Denis Lazovic and Alireza Firouzja. Was he just yawning because he needs to be super awake for the challenge that is coming up? Dan Laz not making anyone's life easy here in the Julius Baer Generation Cup.
Oh, and the lights are on. He's ready to fight Denis Lazovic with the white pieces. Maybe he's superstitious. The lights were off when he had black. Now with white, he has flicked that switch. And we see, wow, lightning strike twice. It's another Slav defense. Was Firouzja watching earlier today when Denis Lazovic crushed Abdusattorov in this opening? Okay, what's he going to choose? E3 in this position served him well. The slow Slav, not rushing for any main lines, not trying to kind of play too direct at these early stages.
But is this one Denis is also thinking that Alireza has something prepared against the opening that he chose? But we do see a repeat. He played this against Nodirbek Abdusattorov. And Alireza, where's he going to mix it up?
Yeah, he's mixed it up already. He's brought his bishop out to f5, and this is very trendy. Seems to happen at the top level all the time these days. Anytime the Slav is initiated, the Slav defense, this position lands on the board, where white is able to snatch off the bishop pair. We saw how strong the bishops were in the last clash between these two, but at the cost of a few moves, and white slightly loosened up the central pawn structure here. Often white castles queenside, and this preempts that, Simon. White, if he castles queenside, now will potentially walk into a pawn storm.
I think good choice from Alireza actually with the black pieces, because the one thing you're not going to beat Dennis today by playing a solid, totally solid opening, especially with the black pieces. He's just playing too well. So you've got to try and mix it up a little bit. And this variation kind of forces white to do something a little bit peculiar with the king, because as you said, David, the white king generally castles queenside here, so you're going to get a dynamic fight. So I think it's a good opening choice by Alireza. Obviously, white's doing absolutely fine as well. This last move, I'm not aware of, and I don't want to criticise it because it's normally brilliant, but it seems a bit of a target there on to all the things pointed at it. But I guess this must be one of the latest theoretical moves.
Yeah, it's kind of unusual though, because I was expecting white to perhaps kind of adopt that kind of G3 and tuck the king on F2, and just wait for the black king to commit to a line. And Alireza's last move of pushing the A pawn forward is geared at the white king castling queenside.
Yeah, I've never seen this H-pawn push either, but at this point, we've kind of become numb to it. It happens in every game, any type of opening. The H-pawn throws itself forward. I guess both sides, I mean, black's A-pawn push met by a white H-pawn push. They're both basically saying, you castle that side, I'm ready to throw my pawns at you. So it's a bit of a guessing game here. And after a trade of pawns, Firouzja's landed in the centre with his knight. Harry might not survive too long, Simon.
He doesn't mind. Harry's like the bravest little guy. He always gives himself up for the greater good. And, well, white's got to make a decision. I mean, you could try to hang on to Harry by pushing a pawn. You could just gambit, as you mentioned, and go castles queenside, I guess. I mean, I think it was quite a big decision by Firouzja as well to capture on c4, because he's given away the centre, right? I mean, he's put his knight into the centre. He's made the position even more dynamic. This is going to be an exciting game, I feel. Here we have it, castles queenside, but white now always has this move e4. The pawns in the centre that pawn would attack the black knight. So it's I think it's going to be a very interesting game, this one. I'm excited the way the opening has gone.
Yeah, it's provocative stuff from Firouzja. He's kind of bucked a lot of conventional wisdom here. He's given up the bishop pair. He's given away the centre. As Simon mentioned, white is ready to conquer that part of the board. He's actually behind in development here as black. If you look at the black pieces that are active, it's pretty much only 2, whereas white has a bunch of pieces. White is already castled, but still a lot of potential. It's still very dynamic. He's definitely heading for his type of position, but Dennis is not backing down. The pace with which he's played with white here, after what must have come as an opening surprise, it's impressive stuff. And definitely, this is going to really explode. This is going to be a real fight, these next few moves. And yeah, it's hard to predict what's going to happen next. So many surprises.
So many surprises, and I'm surprised to see the H-pawn hanging, but he decides not to capture it. And David, we have an aggressive move on the queen side, but perhaps you can show what were the dangers if black did get greedy with the H-pawn.
Yeah, this pawn was hanging in 2 different directions. One of them we can rule out really quickly. If taking with the bishop would walk into a pin, and you never want to self-pin in chess. This rook behind is undefended, and a pin is when the lower value piece is kind of kicked out the way, but you cannot move it due to a higher value piece behind it. And here, the bishop simply cannot move. You lose the rook. Therefore, you lose a piece and the game. So this one can be forgotten, but rook takes pawn was definitely a candidate move. And I guess here he was perhaps scared of an idea such as just a simple trade and maybe the white rook coming across. Potentially they're even stronger moves, but now the threat against the bishop is not just 1 move, it's 2 moves. For example, again, if black plays a nothing move, then pawn to g3, the bishop moves out the way, and devastation along the back rank. So this type of thing makes top players really squirm. They don't want to get greedy for the sake of giving the opponent, just for the sake of a pawn, giving the opponent some activity. Instead, he's the one offering a pawn, Firouzja. Notice how both sides are playing on opposite flanks here. And now, don't get greedy if you're Dennis. Knight takes pawn would potentially walk into a double attack. Here, you can get the bishop out the way. You can take this knight, but I'm not sure you really want to start opening lines against the white king. So really complicated stuff. And by gaining space on the queen side, Firouzja is saying, OK, I might push forward. I might come and try and trap your queen later if you're not careful, or just throw pawns forward now that you've committed on that flank.
And there we see Dennis pull the pawn, push the pawn forward, just blocking the a4 pawn's advance. And I was really unsure about this little pawn move because Black now has a little lever to open up the A line. And yeah, you can play b5, b4. And that's scary.
It's really scary. If you move the bishop now, then this pawn's just going to step forward and, yeah, really ask questions of the white king. I don't think you can risk this. Suddenly you're facing an attack for free. And, yeah, I wonder what he's got up his sleeve. Maybe he's going to take this knight, and Black has choices here which way to recapture. Maybe he'll block. This looks like a positional way. This is the boring old man chess, at least, that I would go for, just stopping the black pawn advancing. But this is double-edged stuff. Both sides making decisions so quickly. Frankly, I'm really impressed the confidence with which both players are showing right now.
Wow, the action really heating up on this one, and action is heating up in Division 2 as well. Big update coming in. Levon Aronian has defeated his opponent in the Armageddon 1.5 to 1.5. Levon will go on to play Artemiev. He won against Amin Bassem. He plays against Artemiev for a seat in the finals to face Jan Nepomniachtchi. It is Levon versus Artemiev. That's a matchup that you all can follow on Chess Dojo's Twitch channel. How do you think that one will play out, Jovanka?
It's a big name, big game. I mean, it will be super close.
Levon versus Artemiev. Do you guys think there's a favorite in that one?
I reckon someone whose name begins with AR is going to win that final. That's my prediction. Simon.
Oh, hot take there.
Hot take.
How can I follow that up? I'm not even going to try.
Right?
Sorry, guys.
David's been sitting on the fence today.
50-50, but David's 100% right. Someone whose name begins with AR will take that one to the finals. But right now, the big question is who will play in the finals against Magnus. And the opening moves that we've gotten, it looks like we might not have an Armageddon because this is perhaps going to be a decisive one.
It's certainly brewing up to be a super sharp position. And there we see Alireza thinking about whether he's going to go there for that b7, b5. I mean, it's a really crazy position because of the lack of safety of both kings. And Black is missing the bishop pair, so that's why he has to initiate play. If White is allowed to just consolidate, then White has a very simple attack. Basically, they're going to storm the right side of the board, open up a line, and just win.
Yeah, who would you pick? Because the stakes are really high, maybe especially for Black.
I've had this type of position with White before, and there I was quite successful, so I have some emotion attached to the White position. So I'm kind of predicting White will have an advantage. Probably it's not going to be enough to win, though.
Yeah, either way, though, I agree with Tanya's kind of guess there that Armageddon, maybe the least likely right now, just feels so imbalanced, so, I mean, potentially dynamic. It's all about the potential. This one, it's not exploded yet, but just the knight versus bishop dynamic always adding a bit of flavour. The pawn structure here being so asymmetrical. Opposite side castling, potentially White's king a target, but also very well placed if Black can't attack. Simon, I'm going to put you on the spot.
I guess I'd be quite happy to play either side here, which sounds a bit weird. I'd probably prefer White, and we can maybe have a look at some moves in a second. But I guess the reason I'd be either side is just a very exciting position. I mean, both kings seem to be in quite a lot of danger, so I'm trying to work out whose king is safest. And we've shown how the White king can be attacked by a pawn storm, but the Black king is certainly not safe because if the Black king ever castles, you've got h5. If the Black king, and that move will open up the h-file and I think just be a disaster for Black. So Black can't castle. And if you don't castle, then White also has ideas of e4 at the right moment. And that knight on d5, as soon as you remove that knight on d5, White's going to be blasting through the middle of the board with a d5 move. Let's say the knights are exchanged here and there's some d5 possibility at some point, which is going to open up the Black king. So the more I look at this, the more I feel the Black king is actually the weaker king here. And that might be the sort of deciding factor And I think Alireza's having a long think because of that reason, yeah.
But Simon, in these kind of positions, doesn't Black have enough tempo to start advancing further on the queen side and just go all in with hitting that light squared bishop and maybe even sacrificing the pawn as you're highlighting, David, on the board?
I think he'd love to do that, but there was the line that David pointed out where white simply stops the advance of that pawn. If that black b pawn can get to b4, the furthest square is highlighted, brilliant. Black will be well ahead in a race, but I can't see any way that pawn can get to b4. So that's another key thing in the position. So it's there's a lot of little things going on. White's got his plan, and Black's got his plan of throwing the b pawn forwards, but I don't see how that b pawn's going to get up the board further enough at the moment. So it's going to be very interesting the next couple of moves. I mean, just to see how things start turning here.
And how does Alireza, I mean, he didn't go for that b-pawn push, which I agree, Tanya. I think he probably should have done just from a practical standpoint, because now it looks like one-way traffic. How's he going to meet this pawn push? Attacking the knight, you don't necessarily want to trade because suddenly these bishops, once the center opens, they're going to wreak havoc along these diagonals. And if you don't trade, if you step back, then, okay, white's bishop will retreat, attacked. White is still ready. Maybe you shuffle your king towards the corner. We saw this in a game yesterday. Anytime you castle long on the queen side, always take a timeout, but then ready to explode. And Black's king lacking a safe flank to castle on.
Could you step back with the knight the other way so that's not in the way of the b pawn?
Stepping back in this direction and, yeah, maybe throwing this pawn forward in the near future. Maybe this is what Alireza's banking on, but he definitely has to reckon with a explosion in the center. And I think that's what Denis Lazavic's weighing up right now. Spent 2 minutes on this last move. Really tempting. I don't think I'd be able to resist kind of pulling the trigger and throwing the central pawns forward. Feels like white is ready.
And now both players under 10 minutes, taking their time in this position. It does look that white is ahead in development, control of the center. Alireza once again has the task of trying to create tricks and counterplay on the queen side. He's got to be fast. I don't believe he really has the time to get his own king to safety here.
That's the problem. I think the black king has to stay in the middle, and we can see this natural move, but the middle is going to open up. That's the issue. As soon as white plays one of his pawns forwards in the center, it's going to explode and the black king will be stuck there. So somehow Alireza has to find his own counterplay in this position. And that b pawn, as you mentioned, did look like a good plan, but it's going to be very slow moving the b pawn now. So what can he do? I'm definitely preferring white after these moves. Yeah.
So I mean, you say slow, but to me the most the clear way forward would be to trade the knight, not lose a tempo with retreat, and then go forward with the b-pawn. Sort of go and pray. You know how...
Yeah. I love it.
Play first, think later. Bad advice?
No,
Don't
great
try that
advice.
at home.
Great advice. This is what I do all the time.
Hoping is not a plan, Tanya, especially not in a sharp position. I mean, no, you have to back it up with...
Yeah.
Let's try to back it up then. Let's see what happens.
Definitely. I love this idea of just like pray and move.
I thought you were going to say you love the idea of b5, b4.
I do as well. I really love that idea. I mean, even if it doesn't work, it's a very typical idea because you have to open up white's king. Who cares about a pawn? The pawns do not matter. They just give them away, and you're going to go a3 at some point. So I think this is a nice idea. I mean, the computer thinks it's absolute rubbish, but I mean, the computer can go away. Yeah, this is where you turn off the computer if you're, analysing these kind of positions. But at least this is creating something, and the danger is black won't have a chance to do that in the game.
Yeah, looks like a good gamble, a good practical chance here from Firouzja, but he's thinking after inviting this pawn push, something's up here. It doesn't feel like he's comfortable at all, and he goes back. And yeah, it's all about this black king. You can never slide to the right because white will open it up. You can never slide to the left because I don't think you have time simply. White's going to blow open the center and you can't really sit in the middle. You can't not slide at all. You have to do something. And the only question is when to pull this trigger and go for the pawn break. If you're Denis Lazovic, maybe you just, I'm a scaredy cat. I want to slide the king into the corner.
That's such a safe move.
Slide to the left.
You love this sliding.
Yeah.
I was going to say, was that your word of the day?
I don't know. What's the word of the day?
I don't know.
Either way, okay.
Slides the bishop back.
Slides the bishop back.
I was hoping he'd sacrifice that bishop there, but I mean, that was a little bit over the top. But this is very sensible. I mean, still black has all these problems, right? Because if black ever castles, black would love to castle and put the pawn back on g6 to h7. But when you castle, white just has this lever to open things up. And I think it's time to push the b pawn and pray, right? Yeah.
Why do you always follow it up with praying? b5 is a very logical move. You can just play b5 and calculate, not b5 and pray.
It's easier to pray. You don't have to calculate. I don't want to calculate. I'm lazy. I just want to push pawns and pray. Calculate, it requires hard work. Don't give me any hard work, please. Just pray, and but it's a logical move, right? I like it. Yeah. I like the move, so.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be Dennis Lazovic, Simon. You would be Dennis Lazyvic. Sorry.
I like it.
No calculation.
Yeah, I would certainly be the Lazyvic. And here it
B5.
comes. B5, there you go. He's doing it.
Yeah.
B5 and we're live. And there was a great book as well recently. Well, I say recently, a few years back. Move First, Think Later.
Yeah.
I think it was by...
Love the name already.
Willie Hendricks, yeah.
What was it? Move and think later?
Move first, think later.
Okay, all right.
And
I like it.
Genuinely believe that sometimes you just move and, yeah.
I've got to get this book. I'm probably too lazy to read it. That's the problem. So it's like, yeah.
It's actually a great book. Recommended.
Yeah. I'll probably never read it, though. It's like so many chess players. I bet there's loads of people at home. They got like loads of chess books. They've opened it once and they've put it back on the shelf and they've never looked at it again.
Yes.
Come on, own up in the chat.
Yeah.
How many of you?
No. But it doesn't matter because it's a reference.
I think the fact of having... I actually love books.
You can just pick it out.
I love books as well. And I think the fact that you got all these books alive with so much information is a beautiful thing. So even if you don't get around to reading them. And so reference. I like that. It's a good excuse. Yeah, so buy our books for reference. All of them. And reference, have that information.
I'm looking at Alireza right now. I don't think he's going with the play first, think later. I think he's actually calculating all these lines and complications and can he break through with b4. It is all about timing. Simon, I've seen your games. I've seen you play. I don't think it's move first, think later with you. It's sack first, think later.
Yeah, why get in trouble, really? So, I mean, you have to calculate, right? I mean, I'm joking a bit, but obviously you have these ideas and you've got to find ways to attack here. This position is so sharp that you've got to just find positive ways to attack. And obviously you have to calculate them. You can't just go around giving up points for no reason. You've got to have some purpose behind them, unfortunately.
Let's do it. Should we do a deep dive?
Definitely.
Actually, look at the lines.
Calculating. So, first of all, I guess we have to look at the forcing moves.
And which would those include, Ivanka?
Well, they're the checks, the captures, and the threats. So, no checks, no captures, and the threats are e5 and, I guess, d5 and maybe even h5.
Yeah, and okay, where should we start? We'll start with the move he's just played, Dennis Lazovic. Thank you for helping us out there. D5 on the board, and okay, this is the chaos button that he's just pressed. He has one connect 4, so congratulations to him, beating the connect 3 over here. But basically, he's saying, I have the bishop pair. I am ahead in development. This pawn has just been captured and traded in the center. Very natural. That pawn has disappeared. But the question is, do you take this pawn now, or do you just try to pin black in the center? The king is ready to run. It might still take a few moves to checkmate it. And Dennis says, OK, I'm just going to capture, not fearing any ghosts. It looks like this is a deadly skewer of the queen and king, but this can be safely blocked with the white bishop also opening up the rook against the black queen. Not just that, but look at this diagonal that the bishop is perched on. It's like an archer from afar. This looks beautiful for white, and the evaluation bar agrees. Alireza needs something a bit tricky here, something a bit special, otherwise he might not survive. Just the next few moves. I'm seeing some checkmating patterns if black castles, for example. Just look at how this king sits. Oof.
Just remove that h-pawn and there's queen g6, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you... that's... Yeah.
You just throw this pawn forward. Maybe at the very least you can come and take this pawn now due to a pin along this diagonal. It's all about the bishops in this position. And we see a couple more moves, but how is this going to help? Look at the power of these beasts right now. This pair of bishops.
Is he banking on moving the bishop to the f6 square? and just saying, you know what, the king can find a safe home, safe-ish, home on f8.
Maybe. Maybe you're right, Ivanka.
It looks so scary, though, doesn't it? I mean, you have to start. I mean, it's kind of. I think it's already getting quite desperate, isn't it, for Alireza here? I mean, as you pointed out, David, these bishops too strong. The Black King. It's all down to King's safety, and the Black King is a real target. So, yeah,
you have to do something here. I think you might have to either play your move, Ivanka, bishop to f6, or just hope again. Push b4.
Push and pray.
Yeah, move b4. You think, and I don't know.
David, you're on fire now. So move b4.
Either way,
just about got that. Did well.
Either way, ugly for Black right now, and Alireza dropping down under 4.5 minutes. Might need a miracle.
Oof. I like that move b4. You think b4 bishop f6 can be combined as well. You give up your pawn. I really don't think it is about pawns anymore in this position. You have to try and create play against White's king. But this idea that Ivanka pointed out, David, it's not so easy how White is getting to Black's king once you put it on f8. I'm trying to see a check in that position. I don't really find it. I like your move bishop f6 a lot. It does create threats on the c line. Is it as easy as it looks at first?
Yeah, shall we check it
I
out?
think we
Firouzja's, he's in the tank. Oh, he's really dropping low on the clock for such a crazy position. This might not be enough time, and bishop to f6 kind of hits this bishop. It does allow a check in the center. Another check would be this one, and I'm a bit afraid that a move like this might pin and win the Black Knight.
Oh, wow. That's just line over then.
This might be game over. Unfortunately, it's no surprise with Black's rook, king, everything so passive that tactics are working in White's favor. For example, bishop takes bishop now would simply be met by rook takes knight. And I think that's good night for the Black.
Yay.
We'll be there later, Simon, at the good night. But meanwhile, what else to do?
Could you modify that idea a little bit? Like, for instance, I was thinking whether you could try to castle and then... But the problem is that there's queen takes pawn, right?
Yeah, there might be queen takes pawn due to this pin, but it's maybe now, Ivanka, you will move.
Yeah, this is what I was thinking.
And at least due to this pin, you can survive a bit longer. I mean, I'm just worried about Harry stepping forward in the near future. I'm not sure whether now or a bit later on. And as Simon mentioned, if this H line is open, there's going to be all sorts of checkmating patterns against the Black King.
It actually looks horrendously bad for Black, as in maybe just losing. I mean, maybe Alireza is just working this out now. He's played queen c7, which is trying to get some pressure along the c file, but it leaves the king in the middle of the board, and leaving the king in the middle is very risky. And again, I don't think he's done that much wrong, Alireza, in this game either, to be fair. I mean, how many of his moves can we criticize? There's not many. Maybe a bit of a bad opening. Where did it start to go wrong? Maybe his A pawn push did not achieve anything, something like this. But you know, it's not easy to say where it's gone wrong. Perfect play again from Dennis. Really, really
always
powerful.
felt the most beautiful games are the one when you can't really pinpoint the mistake by the opponent. You can't really understand when it all backfired for you and suddenly one player had a winning position. And there's so much on the line for these players. Let's remind everyone that Dennis Lazovic, Alireza Firouzja, Magnus Carlsen have already booked their spot in Division 1 for the next tournament, while Magnus is in through to the season final in Toronto. For Alireza and Dennis, it's still a fight for that. And this fight is definitely heating up. The winner of this match challenges Magnus in the grand final for that golden ticket. And you can also bid for the official trophy that the winner of this event will get. All you have to do is go on chesschamps.io, submit your bids, and owning this trophy will also get you a VIP ticket to the grand final in Toronto, where greats like Magnus Carlsen, Fabiano Caruana, Wesley So, Nodirbek Abdusattorov, Hikaru Nakamura are already in. 3 more have to find their path to Toronto. It's going to be a big fight, so go ahead and bid for the official trophy of the Julius Baer Generation Cup on chesschamps.io.
Nice trophy. Sorry, what did I say?
It is a nice trophy, and it comes with a really nice VIP ticket to Toronto. That's going to be quite a fan experience.
Hanging out with Hikaru, with Magnus. Could be worse.
Well, right now, is the position getting worse for Alireza Firouzja? The king is still in the center.
Still in the center. Visually, it looks really bad, really rotten for black. But if there's no knockout, this could turn later. It's not obvious. I don't see it immediately what white should be doing. White's king just slightly vulnerable on this c-file. I think Firouzja's found a really good kind of human defense here, at least asking big questions. And Lazovic might start getting frustrated if he can't find anything.
And our feature chat there reminding us that the clocks are ticking as well. Alireza Firouzja, the 2.5-minute mark, under 4 minutes for Denis Lazovic. If this ends in a draw, we get to the bidding Armageddon. But I think we still feel the same, right? That draw is the least likely here.
Yeah, this position is very crazy. And I agree with you, Tanya. It doesn't look like this is going to be a draw anytime soon. White has a beautiful position. For black, it's just about getting that king out of dodge, move it to the f8 square, and then try to get some counterplay. It took me a while to get there, but against the white king.
Counterplay would be a dream, but it seems like it'll take black a while to get there as well, because here we see this last move, making sure that black can't go short castle. So king f8, but now even the b5 pawn is under fire. King f8 played, queen b5, bishop a3. Are there some tactics in the air?
Definitely tactics, and it's enough to scare most players. I'm not sure it's enough to scare Lazovic, but right now, this is black's threat. Bishop takes a3 because this white b-pawn is overworked. And wow, we did just see there for a moment, white only had one move to keep the advantage. I think you're right, Tanya. Taking this pawn would have backfired due to bishop takes a3 and suddenly huge threats against this bishop. He found the only move to maintain the edge, though. King to b1, Lazovic is on fire today. What a move. And now bishop takes a3, I guess, would simply backfire because this bishop can move out the way. It can take this knight, for example. Maybe there's something even better, but pawn takes bishop now, and the white king is safe. Peace up.
Great. Yeah, wow. And the speed with which he's finding these ideas. Just impressive form by Denis.
Yeah, very impressive. Especially with the white pieces. He seems to get the positions that really suit him. You know, he does plays solidly and then strikes at the right time. And yeah, black's position is not appealing, and it's primarily...
Such an understatement. I love it. It's so English, that was.
Would you rather be white or black?
I love it. I love the understatement, though. Not appealing. It's very nice.
But you know, a lot of people don't get British humor.
Oh, my gosh. Under 50 seconds, he plays a move, he immediately reacts, and as does the bar.
Did you see that? Yeah, Alireza, he played that move in like the very same second. He was like, oh, what have I done? Don't look at it. And, okay, this looks like a blunder, but we need to find out why.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was wondering about taking on f7, but it might probably be something better than that. Yeah.
Black has gobbled up a pawn, so if Denis doesn't find something now, then this move will be justified by Firouzja. Is this a gamble? I mean, it's that typical thing. You make a move, and the moment your hand leaves the piece, or the mouse, you realise that you've let something slip. Is it to do with maybe overloading the black queen? Yeah. Things are hanging by a thread here for black.
I mean, rook c1, slide that to this... No, but
maybe bishop a5 is also a possibility.
Nice.
Bishop a5, where does the queen go?
Wow, let's show this, and maybe we can get confirmation from the computer. Is this the winning move for white right now? And how many winning moves are there? Wow, it says lots of winning options right now, but the most brutal, the most direct is bishop to a5, overloading this black queen. If you take this bishop now, then suddenly everything collapses. This bishop drops with a check. And here, I'm not sure where the checkmate is, but at the very least, you can kind of conquer the h-file, and it looks like the king will not survive much longer. Trapped on the side of the board like this, and this would be the killer blow. Bishop to a5. You can't resist this forever. If queen to a7, I guess you can continue the same motif.
Yeah.
The queen is going to be trapped. She will have to lose connection with her bishop, and black's position is about to collapse. Will Denis find it? It looks like bishop to e5 also strong, as is even the calm retreating move, bishop to a2. Wow, that would be another level of genius if he just retreats his bishop.
Oh, he does it! He finds it!
Another level of genius it is.
Gosh.
I mean, that's so calm because you have to think about bishop a3, b4. Yeah, you know, you're... That is very, very calm, isn't it, that move?
Very calm, and the evaluation bar says he's completely winning. Basically, this is a persistent threat. You can even just take this pawn. You can slow play this attack because black's king is so vulnerable along this diagonal. If the white queen ever lands on the same diagonal as this bishop, for example, that's going to end in checkmate. And Firouzja's fighting, but let's see whether Lazovic can finish it off.
And how frustrating is it for Firouzja when his opponent is playing these moves so quickly, keeps all the pressure, all the threats on the board, and you've got under 30 seconds to come up with a response.
And your position is in tatters as well. I mean, no, it's going to be mission impossible for Firouzja there.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's just going to... I don't know about frustrated. He's trying everything. It seems like he's defended pretty well. He's trying everything he can. B4 is that move you mentioned, Tanya. I mean, what can you do?
He does the play first, think later, because he went into a bit of a think, and it feels like it's played out of desperation.
Yeah.
And again, Alireza with some resourceful, resilient play here, but it's so difficult to combat these moves like Bishop A2 when you're under 30 seconds, because it isn't a direct threat, but threat is better than execution. And that's always very difficult when you've got less time to answer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Less time, 17 seconds when you're about to get, well, checkmated in a lot of variations. Balancing on the edge here. But where is the finish?
This has got to be Denis Lazavic's best performance ever, one of his career highlights.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Big breakthrough into the elite, potentially, if he wins this game. But it will be heartbreaking for Denis after such a kind of perfect, accurate game so far. If he can't finish it off, that's always the hardest thing, knocking out the very top players in the world. He goes for the H-file, very natural. Apparently a mistake by the according to the bar.
I think you have to make a lot of mistakes there, right? Because, I mean, you still got these bishops floating down. You still got a major attack here. I thought maybe there he could have taken on F7, but okay, black going into the hole.
Oof, full retreat mode from Firouzja. Only 7 seconds left. Where's the breakthrough? Where's the finishing touch here for white?
Can you, Queen E5, you still have maybe Bishop to F6, keeping control of that G7 square. I'm regretting not putting Den Laz on my top 5 players to watch in 24.
And under 20 seconds for white, and he just simply pushes the B pawn. So calm from Denis.
1 second, he needs to make a move.
Oi.
1 second left for Firouzja, and he's not playing happy moves as we've spoken about. He's allowing this breakthrough now. He has to give up his rook for a bishop. There was a devastating threat on the G7 square. And, okay, he's banking on a dark square blockade, but now your material down. And look how passive those black pieces are. White can even just trade off queens, give a check. Even the endgame should be winning.
I think he's going to go for the ending. It's quite a safe way to play, and
he's going to just corral that A pawn. Now it's very important to keep the B pawn alive.
Yeah, if the pawns get swapped off, then it's a drawing chances, definitely. So any chances to save this one?
Problem is, black just can't really move. The black king, knight, and the pawns on the king side are totally frozen.
The only way to get out of this tanglement is to go G6 and put the king out, but he does.
This is a nice move as well.
Forcing the bishop back, as if the pawn would have stepped forward and the pin, and you win.
Still some work to do. He's not found the right plan. And now the black knight is alive. The white king going back shows a bit of indecision. Look at the clock as well. Denis feels like he's panicking slightly. Still a winning position, still a winning endgame because of the white B pawn, but work to do.
There is work to do here. I mean, the pawn on A3 stops white from getting active. This is a quality move, though, isn't it? Just defending against that pawn. And I expect he can just go king C3, B4, queen to B pawn now.
Yeah, and then you've been talking about rook behind the pawn. King steps up, rook comes behind the B pawn, and the B pawn starts marching down the board.
There is some hope for Firouzja, because look at the way that Lazovic has put his pawns. G3, F4, black squares.
Yeah,
potential targets.
Firouzja's working his magic here.
He is. Wow. Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, now he's got ideas of knight H5 or coming in, and this is actually not clear at all. Denis getting very nervous here, not putting this in the back of the net, and this could turn.
Wow, evaluation bar even says that this is level now. The white rook's going to move, but the white kingside pawns, he's really placed them poorly here because they're targets for the black bishop. It's going to become a race at some point. Black's going to go for those white pawns on the kingside, and white's going to race his B pawn forward.
Did you see that? He made the last move with just 1 second on the clock.
Again.
Oh.
This is very tense, but...
He does refuse repetition with that rook move, so he's still ambitious in the position.
This could go either way.
3-2.
He's a cool
Oh my
customer.
gosh!
Look at this.
It's turned around.
Look, he's going to take on G3. There's no way. He's got to push the B pawn. It's
Black's
a
winning.
race.
What just
Oh,
happened?
my words.
Black is winning this race.
Wow.
The pawns are disappearing. Here
But
we
it's
go.
It's still so complex. So this could go. This is completely random now.
But now the
Completely
G-pawn's,
random.
G-pawn's going. I think it's
It is
game
going.
over.
Maybe it is just going. Yeah.
G-pawn's running.
Wow.
He's going to have to give up his rook, and Denis Lazovic has blown it. But
Oh my gosh!
Firouzja, magical play.
Wow.
How did he maneuver his knight around, his bishop around, and get the G-pawn running?
Incredible.
It felt like we just watched two different games. The first half where Denis was dominating, and the second half something completely different.
And this is over. Black has simply won that white rook for free now, and extra
Oh
knight.
my gosh!
You might have to checkmate.
Heartbreaking.
But I mean, you know, you might have to checkmate with bishop and knight though, or something. I mean, it's okay. You probably won't have to do that, but
Still some work to do.
Firouzja, such immense resilience there.
how did he do that?
Yeah, that was magic.
I don't know. I mean, you turn around for a second and
Lazovic
suddenly
just
win.
panicked.
Yeah,
He
but
put his pawns on the wrong color squares.
Yeah.
It
And
wasn't one
Firouzja-
move though, right, Yovi? It was a sequence
Yeah,
of moves.
exactly. You know, it was just a sequence of inaccurate moves, and just Denis lost his mind, and Firouzja, he just kept his cool and just maneuvered his pieces to the correct squares and turned it around.
In hindsight, maybe trading the queens was the first of those series of small mistakes. He could have gone for checkmate, but I think he just wanted to bank it in the endgame, and he didn't realise Firouzja was actually pretty solid there.
You could actually get bishop and knight, couldn't you? If you go G5 and white gives his bishop up for the pawn, we could actually see bishop and knight versus king. And I mean, these guys know how to win that, but, you know, it'll be nice to see it in action. I don't know why I'm so excited about that, but it's like wrong.
Without increment, Simon, how much time do you think you would need to win a bishop and knight? Without increment.
About 30 minutes.
30 minutes? Wow. No, you're right.
I'm joking. I could do it quicker than that.
Yeah.
29 minutes. But no, I mean, it's not easy though.
I remember once when I was working a bit with Fabi, we did race against the clock. He was able to do it in 11 seconds, and that was with knight, bishop, king, all on different sides of the board. 11 seconds.
11 seconds.
Yeah.
Online or
Over the board.
Over the board.
Oh, so no pre-moves.
No pre-moves. Is he going to push that pawn? Black can push the pawn. White, there we go. We're going to get it.
It is on the board.
This is, I'm really happy to see this.
But now the king is already tied up, but it's in the wrong corner.
Yeah, but the trick is all players study this from the wrong corner. So you know how to do it from the white king being in the light square corner. Eventually, white's king has to be pushed into either A1 or H8, a dark square corner, so the black bishop can trap it. So this is where it's going to begin. Here we go. Well-known technique now.
Yeah.
And here is the thing: if the bishop, this is the position, and now the knight will do a W. Yeah. And this is the whole key. The knight does not move from doing this W.
Yeah.
Seems like he knows how to do it.
Yeah, and then this one is the box. There they go. There's the box.
Yeah.
Remember these positions.
And it's funny because when you first look at this, it's very unnatural the way you win it because you move your pieces away from the king. But look at how that knight is magically trapping the king.
Yeah.
And the way to do it, you have to put your opponent's king in the same corner as the bishop.
And he's done it. And he's done it in about 11 seconds. We did see some increment, but it looks like he knows exactly, and that is it.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable chess here, unfortunately, for Denis Lazovic. After a fantastic run and a big fight, being so close to victory, a couple of inaccuracies, and it is the end of the road for the 16-year-old. But he has so much to be proud of for his performance in the Julius Baer Generation Cup, his first ever Division 1, and taking down so many greats of the game, including Wesley So. Fantastic play there, but it is Alireza Firouzja who at the end of the day qualifies for the grand final and will be playing against Magnus Carlsen. But that game, David, it could have gone either way. And look at that, the relief after a really, really topsy-turvy fight.
That is the face of a man who has no idea what just happened, but who has come out on the better side of things. What a fighter, Alireza, and he deserves his spot in the final. But he did ride his luck, and this is where Denis Lazovic had built up a winning advantage. He could maybe even gone for checkmate earlier, but he has a winning endgame, and this was where the momentum started to turn. White's king is already well placed. He just needs to reposition his rook, maybe going round the long way. But instead, he dropped his king back, allowing the black knight to activate. And look at what happened over the next few moves. White's rook dropped back. Now the white pawns put themselves on dart squares where they can be targeted. It was better to trade off pawns, guide your game towards safety. But now G3, and we saw later, this black bishop was able to sneak around. The white pawns disappeared later on, and black was the one who was able to work things in his favor. A miracle for Firouzja, showing miracles do indeed happen.
Wow, what a game that was, and what a finish that was. And it is Alireza Firouzja who takes it in the best of two with the 1.5 to half. But once again, a big congratulations to Denis Lazovic for the incredible run in his first ever Division 1. And we do get a final between Magnus Carlsen and Alireza Firouzja. What a game that was, Yovi.
It was a roller coaster. I mean, it was absolutely incredible, and fair play to Firouzja for resourcefully holding on, because it did look like the chips were down, everything was lost, but he held it together and took those opportunities when they were presented to him.
Simon, we could not have predicted this outcome.
Not at all, no. I mean, you got to feel a bit for Denis as well, haven't you? Because he played so well over the whole tournament, especially today. I mean, he was just playing perfect chess, but it went wrong at the end, and he's gonna have plenty more tournaments where he's gonna shine. It shows his potential there, at least.
Yeah, we saw both players fighting really well today, both players shining at different moments and really showcasing their strengths. I mean, Firouzja, so tenacious, so resourceful. Just staying alive in that game was a challenge. And yeah, Denis Lazovic, he'll be back, he'll be stronger. And this was the start of his ascent to the top of world chess.
Yeah, really feels that way. A breakout performance by Denis Lazovic in this Julius Baer Generation Cup. He won Division 2 of the AIM Chess Rapid, made it all the way. And look at the journey that Den Laz has had. Knocked down to the losers bracket after losing to Fabi on day one, and then goes on to take down in the losers round 1, Armin Tabatabai, then Wesley So, then wins against Nodirbek Abdusattorov, and a huge fight against Firouzja, where it was the 16-year-old who was in driver's seat for a majority of the part. But Alireza Firouzja, one of the best in the world, and he shows why, because getting a winning position against him is not enough. Incredible resourcefulness, and we are being joined by Alireza. He's here with us. Alireza, congratulations. What a game, what a match this was. What happened?
Yeah, thank you. He played really great. He was a better player today than me, but at the end, it's always three results. So when I was his age 4 years ago, I was losing to Fabiano, Levonov, the same, so it's very painful, but it happens, and it's part of the game.
Yeah, it was a difficult match, and in the end, you showed some amazing resilience and resourcefulness. But how much did you believe in your position in that second game? You kept going, Alireza.
Yeah, when he exchanged the queens, I felt like I have chances. He could have played like rook c1, he keep the queen, and I don't have any time to defend. I don't have enough time to think. So, and when he exchanged the queens, I thought, okay, I have some chances. And after he played very inaccurately, and he was very nervous, of course, but he played great until that moment, I think.
Fantastic play by the 16-year-old Denis Lazovic. And I want to ask you that when you were waiting for your opponent for this finals, and it was Den Laz versus Nodirbek, were you following the action and thinking about your approach in the match?
Yeah, I was looking at the game. I was expecting Nodirbek to win, but yeah, I think right now Denis is very strong, and again, I say he was better player today than me, but I just got lucky at the end. So Yeah, he's a great player, and I enjoyed watching him also against Nodirbek.
And congratulations, Alireza. This has earned you a rematch with Magnus Carlsen, who said he was hoping to play you. What are you thinking about that one tomorrow?
Yeah, I should level up my game, of course. It was disaster yesterday. I didn't start the match really good. Perhaps I played a bit risky. So tomorrow I will try to at least fight a bit more, and we will see. And I have to beat him 2 times, so it's not an easy task, but I will try my best.
And you have a big final coming up against Magnus, Alireza. And I want to ask you, it is the road to Toronto. That is what the players are fighting for. And what would that mean to you to get to that grand final?
Yeah, as I said 2-3 days ago, it's I feel like I want to play in that tournament. So if I could qualify, it would be a great experience. So it's, of course, now I have to try very hard to win tomorrow, and if not, then the last leg of the tour. So it's not easy, but I'll try my best.
And Alireza, we do have some questions from our viewers, our featured chat, and this one is from Tatami94. When was the last time you had to checkmate with a bishop and knight?
Yeah, it doesn't happen a lot to me, but when I saw Hikaru couldn't mate with bishop and knight, I checked again the process. So it was a good review. So I felt like I should not be embarrassed like Hikaru.
And in that last game, you sort of realised you had chances only when the queens were exchanged. Was it a bit uncomfortable in the middle game? What were you feeling around then?
No, I messed up in the opening, and after that I was not really confident I will get back to the game, because he kept his 2 bishops and he got the center, so he got everything that he needed. The last hope I had was that the queens were off, so then I had some slight chances maybe to hold. That was the moment, but in the opening it went disaster. So, yeah.
And we have another question from one of our viewers on featured chat, from Boingster, who asks, who is your biggest chess inspiration?
When I was growing up, of course, all the world champions, but Magnus was the world champion. So I started playing chess at 2012. He got world champion at 2013. So it's obvious. I was looking at his games. He was always in the top when I was growing up. So you can't say it was Magnus. It is Magnus. It's Kasparov. All of them are great champions.
Alireza, did you say you started playing chess in 2012?
Yeah.
Wow.
I started pretty late, actually. Yeah. I started at 8.5, 9.
I'm pretty sure you beat me like a couple of years later. And we do have another question from good friend of the show, Robert Hess, and he's asking about your picture on Instagram with Shaquille O'Neal recently. Tell us the story behind that one.
Yeah, it was great to meet him. It was kind of by accident, but we suddenly ended up in the same place. So it was a cool experience. He's very tall, I could say that.
He is tall.
Yeah, I'm still thinking about you starting chess in 2012. That's 11 years ago. Alireza, how have you become one of the best players in just 11 years? How did you do it?
Yeah, it's not the easy road. It's a long, maybe boring sometimes. It's a long road, so you have to make a lot of sacrifices, and it's not the easy road. It's not, I think, for everyone, but at the end, I guess there is some benefits also. So it's not easy, but I like to play chess, so it's good that I do something in my life that I like to do.
Wow. It's quite a story, Alireza. Just incredible, your improvement so quickly. And finally, one more featured chat question, and it's from 4Queen. How inspired and motivated are you to play in the candidates tournament?
It's something that if it happens, I will be happy, but I will not push so much for it. If it happens, I will be happy to play, but if not, it's not a big deal. I could always qualify for candidates, and it's always there. So, in general, if I play good in the calendar of the year, in Grand Chess Tour, everywhere, I'm happy. So, but candidate is like something that you cannot guarantee it. So it's not a thing that I could like push for necessarily.
Well, it's always awesome to see you on the chessboard, and you've got a big grand final coming up. All the best, Alireza, for tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will have the big rivalry back in the grand final as Alireza Firouzja has taken that second spot after his win against Denis Lazovic. And look at that accuracy. 16-year-old Dan Laz with 91% and Alireza edging that out with 93%. And he's the one who got one brilliancy in.
Wow, one brilliancy from Alireza, but yeah, fair play to both players. It was an amazing match, a lot of fun to follow, and I have a feeling we'll see this matchup in future years many, many times.
Would love to, right, David? What a fight it was, and really went down to those seconds, and it could have been a very different story. Denis Lazovic was so close, but Alireza Firouzja kept it going, kept fighting on, got his chance, made the most of it. Which means we get a rematch, the one that Magnus wanted. What do you think Alireza needs to do differently, Yovi, to get by tomorrow?
Well, he has to tread the opening with a lot of caution. If he can handle that stage and still have a really complicated position where Magnus and himself can just play their chaotic styles, then I think it's going to be a very tight match. But of course, Alireza has to win twice in match format. So, I mean, it's a big ask, but it is possible. We've seen it done before.
Yeah, we just have to remind everyone that because Magnus won that first match, that means that Alireza has to beat Magnus twice. I think if anyone can do it, though, he's the kind of chap who can. I mean, he's got a great deal of talent, but I think the opening is key. His real problem yesterday was he was getting really smelly positions out of the opening, and he was just getting wiped off the board. So dare I say it, and I don't really want to say it, but I think he might have to play more solid, which is a bit upsetting because I don't want him to play solid chess, but I think he has to sort of ease his way into the games tomorrow.
Yeah, you said it, Simon, and Alireza said it in the interview. He was aware that he wasn't at his best yesterday. He also mentioned that, or he hinted that he'd play more solid, and it's a cliche, but he has to take it step by step, move by move, and if he can take Magnus down, if he can strike first, then he'll be confident of getting those 2 victories that he needs over the matches.
It's going to be key for him to just let that not get into his head that he has to take Magnus down twice. Get by the first match and then think about the second one.
Yeah. It's not going to be easy.
Yeah, how do you not let Magnus Carlsen get into your head? But that is what Alireza Firouzja needs to do. It is a big uphill task having to beat Magnus when the form that he's in. Doesn't have to do it once, he has to do it twice tomorrow to be the winner of the Julius Baer Generation Cup. We don't know who's going to win it all, but we do know who's won our trivia question of the day. Let's take a look at the question. It was, who was the oldest world champion in chess history? Let's take a look at the answer.
Lasker.
I put the same, but I don't know.
That's because he's copying me.
So both have Lasker?
I've gone Lasker, yeah.
The correct answer
Don't say
is
Smyslov.
the first world
No,
champion.
really? Steinitz?
Wilhelm Steinitz is still the world champion at the age of 58.
Not an easy one, David.
Not an easy one. Oh, I'm a bit gutted, though. My head said Steinitz, my heart said Lasker, and yeah, the head always wins.
That is a topic for another day. Head versus heart, but it was Steinitz, and we do have a winner. It is Kavindu Jananga at 58 years. That is the winner, and you will get our mystery box. Wilhelm Steinitz is the correct answer. Well done, Kavindu. Our mystery box is coming your way. And the big mystery right now in the Julius Baer Generation Cup is what happens tomorrow. Can Alireza Firouzja take down Magnus Carlsen twice? Will Alireza get his spot into Toronto? We get a dream final, and we will see you then.
Beautiful from Dennis again. I've used that word too many times, beautiful, but in this game, but it's just so harmonious.
There it is. Checkmate by Denis Lazovic in game one. Oh, another move.
Wow.
That's a maximalist move if there ever was one, right?
Quite a fight. A very topsy-turvy game there.